Well, good morning to you. It's now 5 o'clock, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. Taking a look at traffic this morning, we have one big problem, and that's on the south side at I-40 westbound between Fessler's Lane, exit 212, and I-24 downtown 211. More on traffic and on weather coming up in just a couple of moments. We begin this morning, though, with a sad update from Unicoi County, where the families of four Mexican plastics plant workers say that their loved ones are confirmed dead. That's according to Channel 4. Now, some of the surviving employees are disputing the company's claim that everyone was told to go home once the floodwaters covered the parking lot.
I actually asked one of the higher-ups, and they told me no, not yet, that they had to ask someone before we was able to leave, even though it was already above the doors and the cars and everything else.
It's Jacob Ingram there, who also told WVLT TV that they were told to stay even after the Impact's plastic plant lost power. He and several others were eventually rescued by helicopter. The Tennessee State Department of Health says the death toll stands at 6, with at least 100 still unaccounted for. But State Transportation Commissioner Butch Eli toured the damage.
We had 47 sections of roadway that were closed down. We've now opened 25 of those. Now we've got 25 reopened already in that amount of time. As the governor said, we've had 300 bridges that have been inspected, and that's to get these things back open.
5 bridges will need to be rebuilt. Now, donation centers are being set up in those counties affected, and officials are asking that you check the TEMA website for the needs list. Meantime, conservative activist Robbie Starbuck announced on X that he's working with a couple of state representatives from the region and has secured 10 Starlinks, which will provide internet service. Market Numbers report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com. Here's Michelle Franzen.
Stocks fell from their records amid worries about the escalating situation in the Middle East. The Dow lost 173 points. The Nasdaq dropped 279. The S&P fell 54. Investors are worried that Iran's missile attack on Israel could lead to a disruption in the flow of oil. Prices, both for U.S. and Brent, rose more than 2%. Shares of gas producers and defense contractors rallied on the Mideast attacks, but the majority of stocks sank. Complicating matters for the U.S. is the dock worker strike at 36 ports across the eastern U.S., which could lead to supply chain problems and higher prices for goods. Workers are demanding higher pay and no automation of work. Economists are also weighing the data of 2 recent reports. One shows U.S. manufacturing weakened more than expected in September. Another finds more than 8 million job openings were posted in August, better than expected.
Now, futures ahead of the opening bell this morning, everything is pointing down. The Dow futures are minus 178, NASDAQ futures minus 72, and the S&P 500 futures are minus 20 points. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. Well, looks like we do have a crash in Joelton. This is a crash involving an injury. Old Hickory Boulevard, east of Clarksville Pike. And it says it's not going to be a big hazard, but it may cause some delays this morning. Delays coming in on 24 intermittently this morning as they're doing road work. So be careful and just be prepared to go down to one lane in some parts of 24 coming into Nashville. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Information fueled,
opinion driven. This is Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
we talk news.
7 WTN. Good morning to you, friends. It's great to be back. Johnny, great to see you. Joan, great to see you. Missed both of you.
Hi, Gramps.
Wow. She just throws that down right away.
Or Grampy.
We're glad to see you, Papa.
Very good. Very good. Well, we'll talk about my adventures in Indiana coming up here during the Gang of Three at 5:35. By the way, lots going on today. As you can imagine, of course, we do have a lot of the play-by-play and the color commentary of the VP debate last night. I got to tell you that J.D. Vance absolutely kicked arse. He really did. We're going to talk about that. Of course, all eyes on Israel. We know that they were attacked by Iran. That was also big news yesterday. We talked about that, spoke about that during our pre-debate coverage yesterday. So now, really, all eyes are on Israel. And what are they going to do? They are promising, I think, a very robust response would be the right word. So we'll talk about that with James Carafano. He's coming up at 7:35 right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. He'll give us his perspective as foreign policy and military analyst for Nashville's Morning News and the Heritage Foundation. So as you can imagine, we're going to start off with the debate last night. And I got to tell you, that J.D. Vance, I think that he absolutely propelled his political career last night. I do. I mean, this goes, at least for me, this goes beyond Donald Trump right now. J.D. Vance did such an outstanding job at changing the minds of Americans. And here's what I mean by that. Just broad brush real quick. J.D. Vance was polished. He was concise. He was articulate. He was sympathetic, he was empathetic, and he was just really, really likable. And Tim Walz, dude was just, I mean, he was flustered. Did you see him just, if you haven't seen the videos, you see him just furiously taking notes. All the time he's taking notes, and he's got like really mad red face going on. And he just looks all flustered. That was Tim Walz's night. He did not look good, and almost every single person that is an analyst and watched the debate last night will admit that J.D. Vance won. But not only did J.D. Vance win, but he also changed minds. And so for a lot of people, the media has been painting J.D. Vance as just, this bully and this guy that says god-awful things. And, he's the architect of Project 2025. All of these things, the media has been demonizing J.D. Vance. And so you ever meet someone whose reputation precedes them, and then you meet them and it's like, what is the big deal? He's fine. He's a nice guy. I think that's what happened with J.D. Vance in America last night. I do. And so one of the reasons that J.D. Vance looked and looks so good this morning is because the media has been demonizing him for so long. And so the longer and the harsher that they demonized J.D. Vance, the better he came out looking last night. And so I'm sitting here and I'm trying to think of, okay, so if I'm going to look at this critically, and I don't want to be a partisan hack, which I'm often, described as, can I think of anything that J.D. Vance did wrong? And I would love to know what you folks think. Did J.D. Vance, the super text line is open, 615-737-9986. Did J.D. Vance do anything wrong last night? I mean, again, I hate to be that guy that just comes off and says, oh, he did nothing wrong. I'm sure that he did something wrong. He was congenial as well. And here's the other thing. J.D. Vance never said that he was friends with school shooters.
So I've become friends with school shooters.
That was Tim Walz. Did you hear that, J.D.? JB, did you hear that part of the debate where Tim Walz actually said that he had become friends of school shooters?
No.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was bad.
So I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy for a long time. They used to teach gun safety.
Yeah. And so I don't know exactly, because I'm trying to think of, okay, now clearly the man misspoke. And clearly I'm somebody who recognizes misspeaking as somebody who does it often, as a talk show host. But for this, I'm trying to figure out where he was trying to go with this.
So I've become friends with school shooters.
So after the debate, you've got Tim Walz, and I guess it was, I don't know who it was, his wife probably. Instead of going to the, what do they call it? The spin room, spin zone, whatever that is. Tim Walz decides to go out for pizza. Now, what does that tell you about, he's emotional eating. That's what it is. He knows that he was terrible last night, and he went to go chow down on a pizza. And the media followed.
Governor, you said you've become friends with school shooters during the debate. Can you clarify what you meant on that?
Can you clarify what you meant when you said you'd be friends with school shooters?
And he won't turn around. All you have to do is say, you know what? I misspoke. I have not become friends with any school shooters. I don't know where I was going with that, or here's what I meant by that. Here's what my point was. But instead, he won't turn around. And he's got the media, he's got the members of the media appropriately asking him, the question.
Can you clarify what you meant when you said you'd be friends with school shooters?
And he wouldn't clarify it. Now, why wouldn't he? Because that only makes it worse. He also didn't really say much about getting caught in the lie about going to China 15 times versus 30 times and visiting China during the uprising at Tiananmen Square.
Why did you say you were in Hong Kong when reports say you weren't?
I mean, he refused. It was not a good night.
Well, but he did say he was from a small town in Nebraska.
He sure did. Population of 400 people.
Where you ride your bicycle until the lights go off.
And I'm sure that people liked their lawns, too. I'm sure they kept their lawns nice and spiffy, too.
That was a heck of an answer.
Unbelievable. I've got all of the answers straight ahead from not only Tim Walz, but also J.D. Vance and the reaction. I've got coming up a great example. When I came on the air, I said that J.D. Vance really has won over people that have been extraordinarily critical of him. I've got one such example, and what turned this critic around is straight ahead on Nashville's Morning News. 5:15, time to check the roads on WTN.
Well, we have a crash. It's in Battlemont involving injuries. It's Woodmont Boulevard at Leland Lane. Otherwise, it's just construction this morning, and there's plenty of it. So be careful as you head out. Traffic every 10 minutes, every morning. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much. 5:15, right now 64 degrees, partly cloudy, and a high of 78 degrees. And so talking about the lie regarding Tim Walz and the fact that he said, well, I've been to Hong Kong like I've been to China 30 times. Was only 15, which is only slightly less bad. You know what I'm talking about? But he did say that he was there during the Tiananmen Square uprising. So, of course, as you can imagine, he got asked about this.
You said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service.
Nice lawns.
I joined the National Guard at 17. Worked on family farms.
Look, so he goes, I'm just going to tell you, I'm not going to play you the entire 2 minutes of BS that followed. If you want to go find it, you can. It's all over the internet. But he didn't answer the question. He went on and on and on, didn't answer the question. It was just, bottom line is, it was a lot of rambling. And he never did answer the question. And so they had to actually follow up.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Awkward.
You could cut the awkward with a knife.
Oh my goodness.
And it was the silence that was such a killer. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like you've got Margaret Brenneman and Nora O'Donnell, and they're just, I mean, to their credit, and I'm no fan of CBS, but the silence really just sort of said it all.
It just sat there.
It was like, is that what you came up with? Because you had like at least 24 to 48 hours knowing that you were going to be asked about this. And so, you know, he seems to misspeak a lot. Now, I think that if these days misspeaking is code name for lying, then that is apparently what the official position is of the Harris campaign. He misspoke about being friends with school shooters. He misspoke about going to China during Tiananmen Square. Goes on and on. Now, critics are praising J.D. Vance. One woman is named Lauren Lee. Now, she's on X, and she's an influencer. She calls herself an independent, somehow involved with The Daily Show. I don't know. But she tweeted this out. I'm no fan of J.D. Vance. As a matter of fact, I've been an outspoken critic. However, his performance tonight was nothing short of artful. We saw the writer of Hillbilly Elegy, someone incredibly articulate and reflective. And remember, this is a woman who has been a big-time J.D. Vance critic. The man was present, empathetic, and unable to be flustered by the obvious bias of the moderators. She says, I was particularly impressed with his pushback against the war machine and calls for immediate diplomacy. He clearly solidified the Republican Party as the peace party. Here's some of that audio that she's talking about.
Diplomacy is not a dirty word, but I think that's something that Governor Walz just said is quite extraordinary. You yourself just said Iran is as close to a nuclear weapon today as they have ever been. And Governor Walz, you blame Donald Trump. Who has been the vice president for the last 3.5 years? And the answer is your running mate, not mine. Donald Trump consistently made the world more secure. Now, we talk about what the sequence of events that led us to where we are right now, and you can't ignore October the 7th, which I appreciate Governor Walz bringing up. But when did Iran and Hamas and their proxies attack Israel? It was during the administration of Kamala Harris. So Governor Walz can criticize Donald Trump's tweets, but effective, smart diplomacy and peace through strength is how you bring stability back to a very broken world. Donald Trump has already done it once before. Ask yourself at home, when was the last time, I'm 40 years old, when was the last time that an American president didn't have a major conflict break out? The only answer is during the 4 years that Donald Trump was president.
Yeah, I mean, that is part of the audio that this woman named Lauren Lee, big-time J.D. Vance critic, was saying that she was impressed with J.D. Vance, talking about peace through strength, talking about how the Republican Party is now the peace party. She continues on. This, if done in earnest, marks a critical turning point, a long overdue party realignment. She says there's a reason Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard have sided with Donald Trump. She says, I hope tonight reminded us of a decorum that we all need in politics again. Unity, strength, and kindness will win the day, she says. They certainly won the debate tonight. And Iran is certainly, of course, still in the news this morning with their attack on Israel. J.D. Vance spoke about Donald Trump and his philosophy a little bit more of peace through strength.
We have to remember that as much as Governor Walz just accused Donald Trump of being an agent of chaos, Donald Trump actually delivered stability in the world, and he did it by establishing effective deterrence. People were afraid of stepping out of line. Iran, which launched this attack, has received over $100 billion in unfrozen assets thanks to the Kamala Harris administration.
Yep.
What do they use that money for? They use it to buy weapons that they're now launching against our allies and, God forbid, potentially launching against the United States as well. Donald Trump recognized that for people to fear the United States, you needed peace through strength. They needed to recognize that if they got out of line, the United States global leadership would put stability and peace back in the world.
521 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Again, the Super Text line is open. 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. Joan Jones has the news at 5:30. Joan, what's coming up?
Well, we'll tell you, Israel is ramping up its response to Iran's missile attack. And also, the mic cut moment heard round the world. Those are coming up at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Joan. Oh, that made me mad. Man, that made me so mad. I've got that audio, too. And we'll, at some point during the broadcast, of course, we'll talk about why it is that CBS decided to cut the microphone of J.D. Vance. So all of that and a whole lot more straight ahead. Window Nation, Dan Mandis here for my window company, Window Nation. They put new windows in my downstairs basement studio, my bedroom, and my kitchen as well. Man, do they look really, really good. And yes, they're energy efficient as well. Now, that means that I am saving money on not only the purchase, not only the install, but also on my monthly energy bills as well. Now, right now, Window Nation has a great new deal going on. You're going to buy 2 windows, you're going to get 2 free, and pay nothing and no interest for 2 full years. Now, that is a great deal from my window company, Window Nation. If you're even thinking about buying new windows, you've got to check out my window company, Window Nation. They can install your windows in a day or less. And with Window Nation, don't forget their windows come with a lifetime warranty. So remember that terrific deal. You mentioned my name. Buy 2 windows, get 2 free, pay nothing and no interest for 2 full years. Call them, ask for the Dan deal. 866-90-NATION, 866-90-NATION, windownation.com. Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionality, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lockboxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
.529 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk. By the way, I started off with me. I'm not sure why I did that. My favorite segment coming up at 7:05. We're going to speak to Robbie Starbuck. Have you heard of what Robbie's doing?
Oh, yeah.
He's amazing.
He is amazing. And he is, I was talking to Robbie off the air yesterday. And he's like, yeah, I was talking to my buddy Elon. So Robbie is working with Elon Musk to get Starlink up in East Tennessee, flood-ravaged East Tennessee and beyond. And he's working directly with Elon Musk. So I love what Robbie is doing. We're going to talk to Robbie, speak to Robbie at about 7:06 here on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7. Coming up, Joan and JB, I had my first grandpa moment. Wait till you hear what happened to me last night.
Oh, I can't wait.
My first grandpa moment at the big VP debate watch party at Hot Springs. Details on that and a whole lot more straight ahead. It's Nashville's Morning News on WTN.
Hey there, it's 5:30, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. We're looking at 64 degrees with the overcast skies now, but we're going to get a nice day out of this. Sunshine, highs around 77. The full forecast is still to come here. The barrage of Iranian missiles into Israel is now over, but the battle is not. Israel's military is engaging in what it calls a significant retaliation to the shocking attack.
Israel striking Hezbollah militants in Beirut, hours after the largest ever ballistic missile attack on Israel. Iran launching an air assault over major cities, firing more than 200 missiles. Explosions lighting up the night sky side. Israeli defense systems intercepting many of those projectiles. U.S. forces also shooting down missiles. Multiple Israeli military bases were hit. Israel could target Iranian oil infrastructure, but a U.S. official tells ABC News Israel will not hit Iranian nuclear sites.
That's ABC's Perry Russum. The presidential campaigns are already fundraising off of last night's CBS News vice presidential debate in New York, each side praising their candidate's performance. ABC political director Rick Klein on Minnesota Governor Tim Walz's performance.
Tim Walz actually was nervous. I think his answers on foreign policy, there was some uncertainty there early on. I think the way that he handled the question about some misstatements in his own biography, specifically about a trip to China that he had said he had made during Tiananmen Square in the late 80s. And I think J.D. Vance, I think the rap on him is that he's kind of got this biting, cutting style. He seemed pretty likable for a large portion of the debate. He seemed relatively humble of talking about his own flip-flop on the question of Donald Trump. Said, yeah, I was wrong about the guy.
And the moderators, Margaret Brennan and Nora O'Donnell, taking criticism for this moment as Vance attempted to explain how so many Haitians were brought here legally.
That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by
Thank
our
you,
own
Senator, for
leadership.
describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
Those laws have been on the books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The
we
CBP
want to have
app has not been on the books since 1990. It's something that Kamala Harris created, Margaret.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut.
Little contentious there last night. That is the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News.
Thank you, Joan. 5:33, Nashville's Morning News on WTN. Dan Mandis here. Now, listen, how do you know who you can trust financially? You know that in the past couple of years, we've seen roughly 30 to 40 lawsuits against insurance companies for trying to sell inappropriate deferred annuities to our elderly. Now, these investments are often pushed on television and dinner workshops and radio, and they often have crazy high expenses. They pay high commissions. They get low results, and yes, they're typically hard to get out of. It doesn't make any sense for most folks, actually, but this is happening, and older folks in particular, they are getting ripped off. Now, don't let that happen to you or your parents or your grandparents. Now, call my guy, Paul Winkler, and his team. This is who I trust. And when you sit down with them, you're going to realize why. They are looking out for your best interest. Now, I do have to disclose that I'm paid for these ads, but I'm also a real client of Paul Winkler's. Now, that's been 10 years now. Paul Winkler is somebody that I trust with my money. He has been working with him. People have been working with him for years here in Middle Tennessee. Check him out. 615-851-1950 is the phone number for Paul Winkler. 615-851-1950, paulwinkler.com.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
Just one spot this morning that's causing some trouble. It's in Battlemont, Woodmont Boulevard at Leland Lane. That's a crash there involving some injuries. That'll cause some slowdowns. Otherwise, it's just construction delays this morning. Traffic every 10 minutes, every morning. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
538, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Welcome on into the Gang of Three. Johnny B, good morning.
Good morning, Dan.
Joan Jones, JJ's here. Hello, JJ.
Hello there,
And I'm
Dan.
Dan. And I'm back.
You are.
Do I sound as tired as I am?
Heck no.
Not at all.
You always sound like that.
So I really haven't slept in about 48 hours. And so I'm really exhausted. I had my first grandpa moment last night.
Okay, what was it?
Did you done?
So, guy says, "Hey, congratulations, man! I'm your grandpa now. This, that, and the other." And he said, "What's the baby's name?"
Did you did not forget,
Joan?
You forget my name all the time. So, and I'm right here. So
I called Johnny JD earlier. Was that on the air or off the air, JB?
And you've also called me Ken before.
I have.
We're all used to it, Dan.
Yes, we are.
We're all used to it.
You know what? I call myself the wrong name on occasion, too. So, usually it's affiliated with a 4-letter word. Anyway. But here's the thing, because you, John, you know how it is, right? So he says, what's your grandson's name? There's like 5 people that are around me. And I am just, what the hell is this kid's name?
I remember your grandchild's name.
I do too.
What, Jameson?
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, okay, so in my defense, number one, I was really tired.
You want to defend this?
You're not helping.
Okay, I'm sorry. You're really tired. You are.
And
I get that.
They were going to do Axel. They were going to do Axel, and then at the last minute, they threw in Jameson. And so I had already, had Axel tattooed on my brain.
Yes.
I'm really glad they went with Jameson, just saying.
Yeah, it was a better choice.
So, but there's like all these people that are around, and I'm like, I can't believe that I've forgotten this name. I mean, this kid.
And in front of people.
Right.
Yeah. And so then, of course, I started shame spiraling, and then I started drinking. Anyway, it's a whole different.
Now we know why you're so tired this morning.
So, so Jameson was born. So a couple of things real quick. Number one, you would think that I would have learned the first time when my daughter Taylor was born, and she's my second, and my now ex-wife went into labor, she was in labor, but then she dropped really quickly. I was down in the cafeteria getting coffee when all of a sudden I come back and Taylor is crown coming out kind of a thing. I mean, I was gone for 20 minutes. Then all of a sudden, here she is. So then it comes time for Taylor to give birth to Jameson. I had to go to Target because her dog broke the baby gate thing. So I had to go to Target. We're predicting maybe a 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon birth, right? It is, I think, 1 o'clock. I go to Starbucks. I'm lollygagging around. I'm thinking about buying this shirt. I get a text message. Now, when I had left the hospital, Taylor she was doing okay. I get this text. The baby's coming now. And I'm like, what? So I hightail it back to the hospital, and I make it into the room, and she's just she's doing the whole pushing thing and screaming. And I'm such a dumb A. I come in, and I'm like, I'm sorry I'm late. People are really worried that
Grandpa's
I'm not
late.
there. So then she's screaming the whole thing. People that have given birth, Now, just so you know, I'm not down there where all the action's happening. I'm shoulders up, right?
Yeah.
And so I, of course, do what any doofus does, and I start recording.
Did you ask her permission first?
Shut up, John. So, no, I just kind of went with it.
Oh, my.
I kind of went with it. So
Yeah.
I'm recording this whole thing. And I got, this is I deserve whatever award there is for video footage, because I got him coming out, and they plop him right on Taylor's belly.
I like how you described it before.
How did I describe it before? You'll have to remind me.
Like flopping a pancake.
Yes, it was like flopping a pancake. Just, they took, out he comes, and he right onto her belly. And it was the most beautiful moment. And yes, I did cry.
Are you getting all verklempt right now?
No, I think I'm okay, but I was talking to you about it before the show, Joan, and you saw me having to fan my eyes.
It was.
The whole thing.
Yeah, it's touching that you are that emotional.
Oh, I'm a very emotional guy.
Yeah.
Just ask Johnny.
Yeah, he's pretty emotional.
Dan, I had to move a spot. What? Why would you do that? Anyway, whatever. So, but then, best part. Now, just so you folks know, the behind-the-scenes discussions at WTN. Yesterday, I asked Brian, Chris, and Matt if I should relate this story to you. Brian and Matt were a no. Chris Hand was a yes. All right. I consulted with Johnny and Joan. They both say yes. So either Hand, Joan, and Johnny liked working together so much they're conspiring to get me fired. Or y'all really think that I should relate this story. So I'm going to.
It's the latter, Dan.
Is it the latter? Okay.
I think this is a compelling story.
It is.
And relatable.
What did I tell you? I said you had me at.
So Jameson is born, and he's like, he's just, he's a bloody mess. That's how babies come out.
Right.
So Jameson's dad is almost ready to faint, right? Now, I'm the old pro at this. This is number 3 for me. So they ask if he wants to cut the cord. He can barely stand. So, of course, I decide to stop filming and said, sure, I'll go ahead and cut the cord.
What
no
a guy.
problem.
What a guy.
So I do the cutting of the cord. And those things are like elasticity or something. They're hard to do. But anyway.
Yeah.
So about 20 minutes later, I'm talking to my daughter. Everything's fine. My daughter looks at me and she squints her eyes. And she looks at me and she says, Dad? I said, yes. She says, you've got cord goo on your glasses. I had cord goo on my glasses.
Oh,
and I'm like,
how did you do that?
Joan, how do I do anything?
Okay.
This stuff
Fair.
just happens to me. And she's like, how did you get cord goo on your glasses? I said, I don't know, man. Stuff is flying everywhere. You were there. And so then the nurses start laughing at me.
Of course they did.
Yeah.
And not in the, oh, he's such a quirky little guy kind of way. They were just like, they were laughing, I think, at me and also kind of feeling sorry for Taylor. This is, her father.
So that's your dad. Okay.
Yeah. And trust me, the way nurses are, they were telling their families.
Yeah.
Oh, I guarantee you.
Definitely.
This guy had cord goo on his glasses. That'll be the
cord goo. And when Dan was telling me the story this morning, when he started it out, I said, before he even told me the story, I said, you had me at cord goo.
Oh, man.
Little schmutz on the glasses.
That's right.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah, so I cleaned it. And overall, it was just, what a great time.
Oh, man.
To be with, Amy was there and Riker was there. They had come up. And it was just a great time. And so...
did you have a hard time leaving at the end of it?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
We knew.
Because I love Tennessee. I love my job. I love the listeners. I love you guys. But I really wanted to be there for her. But, really my role was kind of done.
Yeah.
And I got to get back here. But I hated leaving. We're going back up this weekend, though.
Oh, you are? Wow.
Very good.
Cool.
It's like 3 hours away. She's outside of Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's where she is. And just a great time.
Now, has she already gone home from the hospital?
She
and all
goes
that?
home today.
Goes home today.
Very good.
Baby's going home with her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I hope so.
Well, sometimes, they keep them if they're, if they need a little extra under the lights or,
Nope.
So then they're in great shape and they're going home. That's terrific.
And you sit there and you look at because I did a lot of holding of young Jameson, and he's looking up at you. Did you guys have this feeling? So when there's a baby crying, and clearly fussy and ticked off about something, and then they get put in your arms, and they stop crying.
Yeah.
And you realize that you're clearly doing something right.
Yeah.
Or they've taken a crap. And for me, it was the latter.
Yeah.
They get that look.
I kid you not.
That sweet-smelling baby is smelling a little different.
I was like, oh, look, he calmed down. And then it's like,
oh.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? I mean, you remember, I'm probably going on too much about this, but I mean,
not.
No.
That first one is like tar. You guys know.
Oh, yeah.
Joan, I know
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about. And by the way, I also
They call that meconium.
and then is that what they call it?
I think so.
And so the first couple of hours that I met Jameson, I'd been peed and pooped on.
Oh, yeah. They'll pee. In fact, I brought that up yesterday. I said, right now.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, I said, probably Dan's being peed on right now.
Yep.
Because they all do it. My youngest son did it to me.
Did he?
Yeah, he nailed me. They said, do you want to change his diaper? I said, oh, sure. The minute I put the old one off, all of a sudden I got hit.
Well, the funny thing was, even though, Taylor, my daughter, had been working on, practicing how to change diapers, this was going to be her first live baby changing diaper. And so she was a little nervous. So she basically said, Dad, can you do it? And so, oh, sure, let the old pro handle it, right?
Watch old Dad.
Did you forget?
I go in, and the fountain started doing what fountains do. And I just got it all over my hands and everything. But whatever, it's all good.
One thing that I did bring up yesterday, and not that I've been around you and your daughter a lot, but when I saw her interacting with you at your wedding, man, there is nothing better than seeing a father and a daughter that are close like that. And that's what I thought about yesterday. I said, man, this is going to be a special time for Dan and Taylor.
She's my girl.
Yeah.
That's
and now
awesome.
Jameson is, and all day yesterday, last night at the event at Hop Springs. What a great event.
That was a great event.
We had so many people there.
I hated to leave early, but I just had to.
Oh, there was a lot of people there, a lot of friendly people. Thank you all for the congratulations. And I'm not mad at the guy who asked me what Jameson's name was, and I
You shouldn't be mad at him.
No.
I'm not mad. I was mad at myself. I couldn't. You ever been in that position?
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you?
Come on, we all have.
Oh, yeah. I remember when I was it was when I was dating Glenna, and I saw some old neighbors. We were walking into an establishment, and I'm talking to them, and I said, oh, and by the way, this is, and man, her name just for some reason escaped my brain. And for a long time, I was always reminded of that.
My husband and I have a system when we go somewhere. If we see somebody that we know and we remember their names, we say it out loud just so that it makes it easier for the other person to remember the name too.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, my system. Johnny, I've told you my system. With Amy, whenever we go anywhere, I tell her, when somebody walks up, just don't wait for me to introduce. Just stick out your hand and say, I'm
Hi,
Amy.
I'm Amy.
There you go.
And then the other person, whoever the other person is, will state their name. Because clearly, as Jameson will certainly hear at some point in his life, I am terrible with names. That's why I kind of like calling you JJ, because there's less to remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Shankpaw.
Wow. Very good, Johnny.
Wow.
All right.
I like that.
I do. And so, apropos, 5:53 on Nashville's Morning News, and Joan was coming up.
I'll tell you why you may be surprised at just how much dock workers are demanding to get back to work. Also, new rules for Rutherford County students who make threats against their schools. Those stories coming up at 6 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
5:57, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Appreciate you listening. Okay, coming up, the infuriating mic-cutting moment as CBS cuts the mic of J.D. Vance. And what was J.D. Vance trying to say, and what was so important about what he was trying to say? And can I just ask this question? What exactly was so important that CBS wanted to get to? Remember, one of the things that they said, and I'll get into this in more detail, but one of the things they said in justifying cutting off J.D. Vance's mic as he was talking about illegal immigration, which is clearly an issue for the Harris-Walz campaign. He was speaking the truth. And this is a truth that the American people need to hear. CBS didn't want them to hear it, but it is really important. And what was so important that CBS wanted to get to? We'll talk about that and a whole lot more straight ahead. Matthew Hurt, by the way, coming up at 6:36 right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, good morning. It's now 6 o'clock, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. It's overcast right now and 64, but don't let that fool you. We'll head up near 80 degrees with sunshine today. The forecast is still to come. The death toll from Hurricane Helene is now past 160, as many people in East Tennessee and North Carolina are scrambling for basic supplies. All three water treatment plants in Asheville have been compromised because the pipes that water flows through have washed away.
You don't realize how thirsty you are, you're at home and you flip your faucet on, just drink out of the sink or flush the toilet, brush your teeth, you have to spit in your sink and you have to use your good water to rinse your sink out.
FEMA says it's already delivered 1 million liters of water to North Carolina. And East Tennessee's sheriff has announced the arrest of 8 men for alleged looting in a flood-ravaged area over the weekend. Washington County Sheriff Keith Sexton reporting deputies arrested 8 men for looting Saturday. All are in custody at Washington County Detention Center. They're all being held on $20,000 bond. The dock workers' strike enters its second day today, and there are some reports that progress has been made in negotiations over wages. Controller Chris Hollins was on the picket line yesterday at the Port of Houston.
We've all experienced this inflation where prices have gone up and up and up. Wages here at the port have not gone up and up and up. They've remained stagnant. And so what ILA is fighting for is a fair wage.
Now that fair wage he's referring to, the Longshoremen's Union, wants a 77% hike in wages. They've already shot down an offer for a 50% pay raise. Students who make threats in Rutherford County could now lose their driver's licenses, and the school board voted unanimously in favor of criminally prosecuting school threats, too, saying something needed to be done to stop the increasing number of threats to schools. Market Numbers report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com. Here's Jim Ryan.
October has gotten off to a rocky start. The Dow Jones slipped 173 points from its record to close Monday at 42,157. The S&P fell 0.9%, while slumping tech shares dragged the Nasdaq Composite down by 1.5% yesterday. Seaports on the East Coast and along the Gulf of Mexico remain idle as a dock workers' strike enters its second day. Talks between the union and port operators over pay and automation have continued, but there's no sign of a resolution. Meta is getting some help from overseas to protect consumers. The parent to Facebook is working with two major banks in the UK to detect and take down scam accounts and organized fraud schemes. And McDonald's is again temporarily replacing the Happy Meal box with the Boo Bucket. First introduced before Halloween 1986, the bucket this year again comes with stickers that kids can use to decorate them for trick-or-treating.
I think Jameson needs one of those. Dow futures are down 122 right now. NASDAQ futures -9, and the S&P futures are -6 points. That's the latest news, traffic, and weather. Next, I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. Well, we have got, one problem this morning. It's the South Loop. There's road work. The off-ramp right lane has been blocked. That's the I-40 South Loop westbound off-ramp at I-65. That's exit 210B. It's blocked. It's road work, and they're going to be reopening that soon. But that delay will be increasing over time because that's going to be there. They'll be down to one lane on that loop, on that exit ramp through November. Just remember, traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Information fueled,
Opinion driven. This is Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
We talk news.
6:06, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to you, friends. It's got to be really good to be J.D. Vance today, really bad to be Tim Walz, because Walz got his arse kicked last night in the VP debate. You know, I think part of me, I don't want to sound like I'm gloating, but if I am, too bad. Because we have been talking about the train wreck that is Tim Walz really since day one. And we've been talking about J.D. Vance. You know what's great is that this morning, all of those media outlets that were out there saying, oh, Donald Trump, you know, he really regrets having J.D. Vance as his running mate. What a terrible choice. All those people now have to eat their words because Vance did great last night. And so there's a couple of things just very quickly, and I did say some of this in the 5. Number one, I think that J.D. Vance absolutely propelled his presidential career. The super text line right now is open, 615-737-9986. Had so many people talking about on the super text line in the 5 o'clock hour saying that J.D. Vance is going to make a great presidential candidate at some point. And I absolutely believe that that is true. He was concise. He was precise. As I mentioned, this really is what he needs to do during this debate is just eviscerate Tim Walz. And he did. And by the way, Tim Walz didn't do himself any favors. But one of the big sticking points was illegal immigration. Now, here's the conversation. It had to do with what's going on in Springfield, Ohio, and so on and so forth. But what exactly constitutes a legal migrant? Because the left and the media will tell you that all of these people coming into our country are legal migrants. And the reality is exactly what I've told you, and we've all told you, that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden simply letting a bunch of people in with zero vetting, no paperwork, no real application process. We don't even know who they are, what they're up to, but they're being called legal. And so that's not what we usually refer to as legal. And so J.D. Vance last night was trying to point that out, that what Kamala Harris says is legal is not traditionally what we would call legal here in the United States. And this is when they cut his mic. I want you to listen very closely to the moments before that mic cut.
Senator, we have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because...
We're going to turn out of the economy. Thank you.
Margaret, the rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check. And since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on.
He is so right. And I am so glad that he stood up for himself. Because how often have we watched the media? How often have we watched Cringe Jean-Pierre? How often have we watched these Democrats? And they just, including ABC and David Muir, where they just feel like they have the right to bulldoze over the Republican. They feel like they have the right to bulldoze over Donald Trump. J.D. Vance didn't let them get away with that. And I'm not saying Donald Trump did, don't get me wrong. But J.D. Vance absolutely stood up for himself. And he stood up for himself. He stood up for himself in a firm yet eloquent way. And it is important because Biden and Harris just let millions into our country. And to not see what is really going on and the moderators not allow J.D. Vance to pursue this line of discussion is absolutely wrong. This is where they cut Vance's microphone.
So there's an application called the CBP One app where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own leaders.
Here's what I don't understand. I'm so angry about this, is that J.D. Vance was making an absolutely brilliant and relevant point. But Margaret Brenneman was so concerned with either one of two things, trying to protect Tim Walz, or she's just looking at the clock and not realizing the absolute truth that J.D. Vance is throwing out there. Because he is stating fact. But they're so pressed to make sure that they get in all of these other topics that they don't allow him to finish what he's talking about, which is how Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are either flying people in or they're having these illegal folks download an app and say, yeah, we'll see in, 5 years. But they call them legal. That's what J.D. Vance is talking about.
Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own
Thank you, Senator, for
leadership.
describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
Those laws have been on the books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The
we want to have.
app has not been on the books since 1990. It's something
They cut his microphone.
that Kamala Harris created, Margaret.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. We have so much we want to get to.
So what did you get to, Margaret Brennan? What did you get to? Climate change and January 6th. Are you kidding me? Nobody gives a rip about climate change. I mean, you look at the issues that the American people care about, when they itemize them and they list them and, hey, what are you going to vote on? Climate change is like way down on the list. Far, far more people want to know what the hell is going on with illegal immigration. They do. And when I say that nobody cares about, the only people that care about January 6th are the rabid Democrats, because that thing has been talked about 6 ways from Sunday. There's nothing left to say about January 6th. There's a lot to say about illegal immigration. This conversation was probably one of the most important discussions they had last night, and they had to have last night because of how important of an issue it is to the American people. And they cut the microphones. So I don't know if they're trying to protect Tim Walz and Kamala Harris, or if they're just sort of blindly watching the clock and not realizing that J.D. Vance was actually making a very powerful point. And they cut the mics. There's a piece of audio that was leaked yesterday, and I've been both champing and chomping at the bit to play it for you. That is coming up next. It is 6:15. Time to check the roads on WTN.
Well, let's check it out this morning. We've got road work at the South Loop, and it's causing the off-ramp from I-40 southbound to I-65 exit 210B. That's shut off this morning, and it's going to stay under construction through November, so it's going to be a mess for quite a while. Otherwise, just construction around the area. You know where that all is. Traffic every 10 minutes, every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Joan. Partly cloudy today, a high near 80. Appreciate you listening to Nashville's Morning News. And I show 61 in here. Johnny, is that right? 61 degrees? Thumbs up from Johnny B. 61 degrees at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Talking about the debate last night, the VP debate. Most people that I have seen clearly believe that J.D. Vance won the debate. One of the things about Tim Walz, and then I'll get to this audio, but J.D. Vance was presidential. He was a great communicator. He turned around a lot of people, as I said at the opening of this segment. But Tim Walz, he looked sort of furiously taking notes. His eyes were bugging out. He looked like big mad at times. And, he looked like a guy who was trying desperately to take notes because he knows that there's going to be a pop quiz. That's what it looked like. It was almost like panicked note-taking. It's like when the teacher says, this is going to be on the test, and the test is at the end of class. That's what he looked like. And by all accounts, even people on the left, they're saying that J.D. Vance had a bad night. And I think part of it, I should say, Tim Walz had a bad night. J.D. Vance had a good night. But one of the things I think that is going on is for Tim Walz, realize that he's been under the radar. And so now, all of a sudden, because he hasn't done any interviews, he hasn't really done a lot of anything except stand on a stage and speak. And so all of a sudden, as clearly the wind is in the sails of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, he has to go on stage And he knows that he has to deal with lying about his trip to China, lying about the stolen valor, about taking a gun into combat, all that stuff. And so he knows that he's got to face all of this. And I don't know when the last time dude did an actual debate, but it was clear that he was either rusty at doing the debate thing or he was just terrible. Now, this piece of audio leaked yesterday. This was from a couple of years ago. This is Tim Walz, and he's talking about illegal immigration and migrants in his state of Minnesota.
We have more refugees per capita than any other state. That's not just morally a good thing. It's our economic and cultural future. This beautiful diversity we see out in Worthington when I'm there, you see 50 languages spoken in the school.
The beautiful diversity of 50 languages being spoken in this one particular school district. Are you? I wonder if the native Minnesotans, if that's what you call them, there in Worthington, I wonder if they would describe all of that diversity as beautiful.
We have more refugees per capita than any other state. That's not just morally a good thing. It's our economic and cultural future. This beautiful diversity we see out in Worthington when I'm there, you see 50 languages spoken in the school.
So they flooded this area with illegal aliens, particularly kids, by the way. Local media reports that a local pork packing factory employs these immigrant kids, and they're violating, stop me when you've heard this before, friends, they're violating child labor laws. Kids as young as 13 are cleaning slaughterhouses, working with blood, working with feces, working with urine. Kids are being exposed to deadly chemicals, and these kids are being burned. I would like to ask Tim Walz, is that what he means by beautiful diversity? Violating child labor laws? An extensive investigative story about migrant child workers from the New York Times in February of 2023 reported in Worthington, Minnesota, it had long been an open secret that migrant children were cleaning a slaughterhouse run by this company, JBS, the world's largest meat processor. The town has received more unaccompanied migrant children per capita than almost anywhere in the country. Outside the JBS pork plant last fall, the Times spoke with baby-faced workers who chased and teased one another as they came off their shifts in the morning. They're working overnight. Some said they had suffered chemical burns from the corrosive cleaners they had used. The Times called it the economy of exploitation in America. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what Tim Walz calls beautiful diversity.
We have more refugees per capita than any other state. That's not just morally a good thing. It's our economic and cultural future.
Wow. So when he says the economic and cultural future, so he's saying that the economic future of Minnesota and perhaps America is violating child labor laws and putting them at risk of being burned, damaged internally by all of these chemicals, working with blood and feces and urine. That's what Tim Walz says is the economic future of America. Is that what you want? So I thought it was interesting. I love that that audio dropped, and we can put that, of course, in its proper perspective. It is 6:21 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk, 99.7 WTN. Coming up at 6:36, we do have Matthew Hurt. He is going to join us. Looking forward to speaking to Matthew. He's got all kinds of great analysis. Also, we're going to get into some numbers crunching as to who actually won the debate. Most of the pontificators out there will tell you that clearly J.D. Vance did win the debate. But here's the most important part. The most important part, according to one poll, shows that Tim Walz and Kamala Harris, they have now lost ground because of that debate last night. We'll get into the details straight ahead. 6:22, and Joan Jones has the news coming up at 6:30. Joan, what's coming up?
Well, we'll tell you President Biden is getting to work today. He's responding to the hurricane disaster in the South and the one crime that's on the rise in the Nashville area. Those stories coming up at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Joan. Appreciate it. 6:22, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I got to tell you, last night out at Hot Springs, the Glock store was amazing. Now, here's the thing. You know that I bought my first gun at the Glock store. You know that I buy all my ammunition at the Glock store. You know that I had my gun customized as well, and I continue my training at the Glock store to this day because it's great training. They've got big old rooms, private rooms. They don't utilize the lanes like a lot of these other places do. It is just incredible training. But one of the reasons why I really like the Glock store and all of our advertisers is because they support WTN. Now, if you know anything about talk radio, you know that oftentimes we end up in the crosshairs and people are always trying to cancel us and stuff. And so when we talk about our sponsors, when we talk about, for example, the Glock store and how they sponsored that terrific watch party event last night, out at Hot Springs. Thank you to Hot Springs as well. But I think that when we tell you about the Glock store and the other advertisers, if you find yourself in need of a gun, if you find yourself in need of ammo or training, support the people that support WTN. Support the companies that support freedom and freedom of speech and love America. Because to me, that's part of what the Glock store personifies, is freedom. And I mean, look, I've got my entire script right here. I could just talk about the Glock store and how they have, parties at the Glock store and all of that. But I just, like, from my heart, I just love that they support, and all of the advertisers support WTN. So when you hear us read the commercials, when you hear the commercials playing on WTN, just think about the fact that these are companies that support the radio station that you listen to, and realize that we all appreciate our advertisers so much, especially, of course, the Glock store, as they did sponsor our event last night. So thank you to the folks at the Glock store. It was an absolutely great event. 6:24 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. 627, Nashville's Morning News on WTN. Yeah, I was talking during the previous hour. I'm basically going on about 48 hours of no sleep as I was in near Louisville, Kentucky, and becoming a grandpa, and it has just been a long 48 hours. And so I've been drinking a lot of Space Cowboy coffee, and this morning, most certainly, Dan Mandis in Nashville's Morning News, powered by Space Cowboy Coffee. Now, this is my favorite coffee company. The coffee, it's hard to believe Space Cowboy Coffee, they've been around now for a year. And things are going really well for year one. And they're saying thank you for buying their brew. And they do want to say thanks by giving you the chance to save big on Nashville's favorite coffee. So here's what I want you to do. You go to spacecowboycoffee.com, use promo code Dan. You're going to get 15% off as they say thank you for making year one such a success. Now, you buy $50 or more, and you get free shipping as well. Again, when you use promo code Dan, this is great coffee that I do drink every single morning to get ready for the show. It is incredible, rich tasting, and right now, my favorite brew is their new espresso roast. So get those discounts. Remember, save 15% off and get free shipping when you spend $50 or more. Go to spacecowboycoffee.com, spacecowboycoffee.com, promo code Dan. .629 Nashville's Morning News. News with Joan Jones is coming up next. I'm going to tell you about my friends at Zero Res. You know, these days with kids and, of course, now grandkids, it is more important than ever to have clean carpets. And that, my friends, is why I use Zero Res to keep my carpets clean and the little ones safe. Now, they don't use harsh chemicals, and they leave your carpets insanely clean. No soap and no residue, just soft, fluffy carpets that are going to stay clean longer. Now, right now, they've got a great deal. 3 rooms of carpets clean for $119. You're also going to get a free hallway. 3 rooms of carpets cleaned, $119, a free hallway, and you're going to get $100 off of air duct cleaning using Fresh 100 as the promo code. So call them today. Restrictions may apply. 615-535-9376. 615-535-9376. Check them out online, ZeroResNashville.com.
Good morning. It's now 6:30, and I'm Joan Jones with the latest news. We've got 64 degrees, and we'll head up today with some sunshine near 80. President Biden is set to visit North and South Carolina today for a firsthand look at devastation from Hurricane Helene. Rescue crews, volunteers, and 6,300 National Guard troops are still searching for survivors.
160 deaths across 6 states are now blamed on the storm. Hundreds of people are unaccounted for. John Norwood was swept away by floodwater.
There was a 30-foot tall wall of water and rocks and tree debris just coming at us.
His fiancée is still missing.
She went one way and I went the other. Last thing I said to her was, "I love you." and that was the last time I saw her.
North Carolina leaders say President Biden has given the green light to mobilize active duty U.S. military units to help with long-term recovery efforts.
That's ABC's Rhiannon and Alley. Meantime, to the easternmost Tennessee counties, U.S. Senator Bill Hagerty took a tour yesterday with U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn, Governor Lee, and State Department heads to assess the damage and response.
We're trying to move this water out as quickly as we can because there's another storm brewing in the Atlantic. If it takes the wrong turn and comes up here again, our ground's saturated, our water levels are high. We've got to be prepared to deal with that, and we are doing everything we can to be prepared for what may come next.
That's Bill Hagerty there, the senator. Governor Lee has requested an expedited major disaster declaration, opening up the FEMA portal so residents can apply for help. New crime stats are out, and they show reports of rape being on the rise in the spring and have increased nearly 24% compared to the end of September last year, with close to 500 complaints filed in the Nashville and Davidson County areas. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News.
Thank you, Joan. 6:33, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Dan Mandis here. You know, all this rain that we've been getting the last couple of weeks, you could end up with water in your crawl space or basement. Now, that moisture could be an indication that you have waterproofing issues. It also means that you need to call my friends at USS, United Structural Systems. These folks are awesome. Now, it could be a little problem about to get worse, or it could be nothing at all. It could be something serious. But the bottom line is you've got to call the experts in waterproofing, USS, United Structural Systems, 615-488-7855. They come out to your house as problem solvers. Their ultimate goal is to give you the peace of mind you need by making sure that you understand what exactly is happening. So if you need waterproofing, call the company that I endorse and have been for years, USS, United Structural Systems. We guarantee our best. Call USS, 615-488-7855, online, USSTN.com.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
To the westbound off-ramp to southbound I-65. That's closed off right now. It looks like they've just actually opened up one lane. So the off-ramp right lane is blocked. It's all because of road work, and we got to be aware of this because it's going to be just down to one lane through November. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
637, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to you. Man, the devastation, just real quick before we get to Matthew Hurt, the devastation in North Carolina and East Tennessee. I mean, it is just stunning. The second deadliest storm on record. Helene flooded waters, and we've got parts of 40 closed. Coming up in the 7 o'clock hour at 7:06, Robbie Starbuck is teaming up with Elon Musk to get those folks internet and Starlink devices out there. And so Robbie, I guess, is working. I mean, I was talking to Robbie yesterday on the phone, and he's telling me that he and Elon are speaking about getting Starlink out there to make sure that everybody can communicate. So Robbie's doing great work. He's going to join us coming up at about 7:06 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 at WTN. Right now on the Newsmaker Hotline, Matthew Hurt is joining us, and our grassroots political analyst. And Matthew, always great to have you on. I want to start out this segment playing some audio from CNN where they do declare J.D. Vance is the winner.
I think there was a clear lack of preparation and execution here on Walz's part.
I think actually it's the opposite. I think he had too much preparation.
Maybe,
He
yeah.
had so many lines that he was clearly trying to say that he didn't listen and said when J.D. Vance said one of the many things he really hit Kamala Harris on, not Tim Walz, but Kamala Harris, he didn't respond because he clearly had things in his mind. I think the lack of interviews that he has done with national media, with local media, it showed. He needed more reps.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, J.D. Vance is much more experienced at this, at public speaking, at defending himself, at pivoting.
Yeah, that is Jake Tapper and Dana Bash, among others. Matthew Hurt, what do you think?
Dan, we witnessed a triple homicide on national television last night. You and I have spoken about this at length in the past. J.D. Vance, in one-on-one interviews with Dana Bash and others on national television, consistently knocks it out of the park, and he did even better last night. It was funny watching the headlines beforehand. Outlets like Politico and others were already preparing the American public to tamp down or to play down Tim Walz's performance, and it was an absolute just embarrassment for Kamala Harris's campaign. J.D. Vance did a great job, and this is exactly what you and I have talked about for weeks on showcasing J.D. Vance, putting him front and center and giving him an opportunity to communicate to the American people.
I think part of what was going on, first of all, the visual of Tim Walz constantly and furiously taking notes, right? And so you look at him; he's on the right-hand side of the screen, and he's getting all like flustered, and he's getting red, and he just looks agitated, and he's like frustratingly taking notes. And you're looking at J.D. Vance, and he's just calm, cool, and collected. I think part of what happened yesterday, and I've mentioned this a couple of times already today, is that the American people have been sold this boogeyman that is J.D. Vance, you know, the architect of Project 2025 and all that stuff. They've really sold him as a guy who is, you know, really just a bad dude. And so then he comes out and he's cordial, he's smart, he's articulate, he's calling for peace in the world. And so J.D. Vance had the ability to show that no, he's not the guy that has been demonized in the media so much. And he came out and told America exactly who he is, exactly who Donald Trump is, and exactly what the benefit is of mega values.
And Tim Walz looked frustrated, and in the split screen, you could see the comfort that J.D. Vance had on stage. We have this situation with no audience, there at the debate, but the audience was the American people, and there were a couple of times where J.D. Vance looked directly into the camera. And I'll tell you this, my girlfriend, who is not political at all, caught most of the debate, and she looked at the TV and she goes, "Oh my goodness, J.D. Vance has beautiful eyes." And I know that seems kind of silly, but for people who want to humanize the attacks on J.D. Vance and Donald Trump by the left and by folks in the media to dehumanize them, That was a moment where J.D. Vance entered into the living rooms of millions of Americans, and not only was he articulate and his arguments were well organized, but also he was charming and disarming in a way that reached those non-political voters who may have tuned in live and those who certainly will tune in the clips and posts after the debate.
I think there were a lot of viral clips. One of the things that I said last night during our pre-debate coverage is J.D. Vance is really good at making complicated political ideas very short and concise. And he did that last night. And you folks know how much I love and appreciate Donald Trump, and I support him. But J.D. Vance is, I would say right now in today's medium, I think that he is a better communicator of MAGA values when it comes to this kind of a format. And so for J.D. Vance, I mean, again, he was very articulate. Then there was Tim Walz.
So I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy for a long time. They used to teach gun safety.
So, yeah, he said that he had...
So I've become friends with school shooters.
Friends with school shooters. Is he ever going to live that down?
You know, I often say, and I have said, that VP debates don't make a lot of difference because most of the time they don't really stick out. But this debate may be all the difference, not only for a gaffe like what Walz said about school shooters, but also the fact, and this is something that we don't often see in our politics, on a number of occasions, J.D. Vance said, well, I agree with you, Tim Walz, or I think that's a good point. And there was a congeniality that we don't see in our politics by our politicians quite often. And I think that played into and will allow independent voters, moderate, suburban women, and others to say, you know what, again, this is a likable guy, and it's somebody that I can trust, given the policies that are going on in Washington. So certainly the gaffes by Tim Walz, but also the opportunities that J.D. Vance took, not only to make very well thought out arguments. I thought his appeal, his emotional appeal on abortion was very important, but also the totality of his ability to be warm and inviting in what were very policy-heavy comments that he made.
6:45, Nashville's Morning News. Matthew Hurt is joining us now. Matthew, coming up, I've got a poll that shows that Tim Walz and Kamala Harris lost some ground last night. I'm going to talk about that straight ahead with you. Time to check the roads on WTN. .45, Nashville's Morning News, partly cloudy today and highs near 80 degrees. Thank you for listening. 62 degrees at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matthew Hurt is joining us on the Newsmaker Hotline. So, Daily Mail poll, half or 50% said they intended to back Harris and Walz. That figure went down by 1 percentage point as a result of the debate. So, they were at 50%. Now they're at 49% directly as a result of Tim Walz and his very poor debate performance. Now, I guess the question is, and this is where we left off, you know, voters in Pennsylvania, which by most, if not all accounts, from people that know things, this election will be decided in Pennsylvania. How do you think people in battleground states took this debate?
1 percentage point may not seem significant, but that accounts for tens of thousands of voters in places like Pennsylvania, in places like Virginia, where it's a 3-point race, in places like Michigan and Arizona. And it is significant in the scope of, again, appealing to those independents, those who are tuning in late in the game. That is not something you'd shake a stick at, this 1 percentage point, because some of these states will be decided by a 0.5 point to 1.5 points. And we will go, what we'll see now post-VP debate is increased coverage of J.D. Vance, Much of it will be positive. Much of it will even be maybe neutral, what we see on CNN. Some of it will be hair on fire, like what we see on MSNBC. But all of that goes into a narrative that is now shifted after this debate in favor of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. So it's very significant in states like Pennsylvania, where this race will come down to 1 or 2 percentage points.
I think the term I want to use is befuddled. Would you say that is the proper way to define Tim Walz and his performance last night, befuddled?
It seemed as though the CNN clip that you played before the break said that he was over-prepared. I did notice that he had too many lines that he wanted to get out that just didn't fit into the conversation, that just didn't fit into the debate. But he looked confused, and he looked. I saw a number of folks on Twitter who showed the eyes wide open emoji.
Yes.
Sort of his reaction, and again, in contrast, the split screen. A very comfortable and confident J.D. Vance. It is sort of like the Kennedy and Nixon debate in the sense that there is a stark distinction on camera of which candidate looked better prepared. And again, I think in the minds of those voters who are still trying to decide, this was a significant win for J.D. Vance.
I think he goes in, Tim Walz, he goes in, and he's already wounded. We know a couple of things. Number one, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance wind in their sails, right? We know that there's inside polling that shows the Democrats and Kamala Harris are not doing well. Then, of course, I mean, with all the lies that he has told, he got caught lying about stolen valor, bringing firearms into combat zones, all of these things. And then he gets caught lying about being in China during Tiananmen Square. And they asked him the question, and they had to ask him twice.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
I purposely left the silence in because it's just, I mean, you can cut the awkward with a knife.
And rarely are these conversations, or rarely are minds made up based on one issue. It is a culmination of things that voters realize. You might say it's death by 1,000 cuts. And I think about 700 of those cuts took place last night on national television. It was a significant show to the American people that Tim Walz is just not prepared for the role of vice president, that there are too many things. He seemed as a politician for the last 15 or 20 years to have relied on lying and inflating his personal history, and that came back to bite him surely last night.
Well, and the last thing I'll say about this is that he also cannot defend Kamala Harris's policies or her flip-flopping. 4 or 5 years ago, she was all about, transgender surgeries for kids. That is exactly where Tim Walz lands as well. She can't defend the border. She can't defend the economy. And so he goes in wounded. And so if Donald Trump wins this election, and every day I am more and more confident, if Trump wins this election, then I believe that great for our side. But I think that this shows that J.D. Vance has an incredible political career ahead of him. And I believe the political career of Tim Walz is done. I think he's done.
Many pundits panned J.D. Vance when Donald Trump selected him as sort of a puppet to Donald Trump. And we saw last night that is not the case, that J.D. Vance is his own man. He makes strong arguments, and he's really an impressive individual when it comes to communicating that America First policy agenda, which came about in 2015 and 2016 in the first Trump administration.
All right. So, Matthew, I got to ask, and I'm running out of time, but what is your prediction? We've got, 35 days? Is that what it is? Till Election Day. What do you think is going to happen?
I don't like making predictions because I hate being wrong.
That's why I asked you a prediction. That's good because that's why I did that.
I will predict that voters will be energized by last night's debate performance. that J.D. Vance will swing a few folks over to our side, and that'll make a critical impact in places like Pennsylvania.
All right, Matthew, how can folks find you on Twitter?
I'm on Twitter at Matthew Hurt, MatthewHurtt.
All right, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you again soon. 6:52, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Text line is on fire this morning. Thank you very much. 615-737-9986. Dan Mandis here. You know that I'm in the middle of a great backyard makeover, and I do know the value of updating and upgrading your backyard. Moon Valley Nurseries, they can help you if you've been thinking about this. Now, I want you to think about what you would want in your perfect backyard. Then check them out online at moonvalleynurseries.com. That's moonvalleynurseries.com. These folks are professional, and they've got a lot of great ideas on how you can really improve your backyard. You can add a ton of livable space to your home when you do this, not to mention increase the value of your home as well. Now, again, if you're not quite sure what you need, but you do know that you need to do something, get a free design consultation from Moon Valley Nurseries. Now, you can prepare for any backyard event. It can be big, it can be small, it doesn't matter. Moon Valley Nurseries, they are going to help you by creating the perfect setting for anything, big or small. So find them online. Tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out. It's moonvalleynurseries.com, moonvalleynurseries.com. 6:53 on Nashville's Morning News. Joan Jones, what's coming up in the news at 7?
Well, we'll tell you the East Tennessee area that is under fire after several of its employees died in Hurricane Helene. That's a company in East Tennessee. And there are new attacks against Israel, but this time it's not on Israeli soil. Those stories coming up at 7 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionability, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
It's wild. It's really, I'll never be able to.
Good morning. It is now 7 o'clock here at Super Talk 99.7. I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. We've got 64 degrees right now, and we are headed up to perhaps near 77 degrees with some sunshine later today. Stick around for the forecast. Coming up, we've got a crash. I-24 westbound. It's at Hickory Hollow Parkway, exit 60. Be careful. It's jammed there. More in traffic coming up as well. We begin with a sad update from Unicoi County, where the families of 4 Mexican plastic plant workers say their loved ones are confirmed dead. That's according to Channel 4. Now, some of the surviving employees there are disputing the company's claims that everyone was told to go home once the floodwaters covered the parking lot.
I actually asked one of the higher ups, and they told me no, not yet, that they had to ask someone before we was able to leave, even though it was already above the doors and the cars and everything else.
That's Jacob Ingram there, who also told WVLT television that they were told to stay even after the impact plastics plant lost power. He and several others were eventually rescued by a helicopter. The Tennessee State Department of Health says the death toll stands at 6 here in Tennessee, with at least 100 people still unaccounted for. And State Transportation Commissioner Butch Allay toured the damage on the roads.
We had 47 sections of roadway that were closed down. We've now opened 25 of those. Now we've got 25 reopen already in that amount of time. As the governor said, we've had 300 bridges that have been inspected, and that's to get these things back open.
5 bridges will need to be rebuilt. A man accused of raping a woman months ago at a Nashville park has finally been arrested. 28-year-old Ali Aladdin Ali was tracked down in Minneapolis yesterday, some 800 miles away. Metro Nashville police say Ali and the victim had met on a dating site prior to the alleged assault. Israel says it's preparing a counterstrike after yesterday's massive missile attack from Iran. Meantime, the terror attacks appear to be spreading as the 2 pre-dawn explosions have rocked an area around the Israeli embassy in Copenhagen.
Heavily armed officers, search dogs, and forensic teams are inspecting the site, which has been cordoned off. No one has been injured. The incident has prompted a nearby Jewish school to close for the day. Security is also being strengthened around the main synagogue in downtown Copenhagen.
That's ABC's Tom Rivers. That's the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News.
This is Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
We talk news.
7:07 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Man, those floods from Helene, second deadliest flooding in history, apparently, at least modern history. Talking about 160 plus people dead, parts of I-40 basically washed away near the Tennessee-North Carolina state line. And towns have just been absolutely devastated and destroyed. I believe a lot of people still missing as well. I want to reach out to Robbie Starbuck yesterday because I saw, Robbie, that you are in the news because you're doing something incredible. And it seems to me like what you're doing is you are sort of patching where the federal government is falling down. And now you and Elon Musk, you're partnering to make sure that folks out there in East Tennessee get these Starlink receivers so that they can communicate via the internet.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, one of the biggest problems out there that we've identified is that people can't reach each other. That's why we had so many sort of all over the place missing numbers that were going on, because for a lot of people, it wasn't that something horrible happened, although, sadly there are those cases where something horrible happens. But for some people, it was just they're in an area where there was no service, for 30 minutes. And so we've been patching that up by getting Starlinks into these places for the past 72 hours. But, we recognize the need is so big that initially, basically what happened is Sunday night, I had this idea, okay, you know what, this is unacceptable. I'm sending out my guys to go get all the Starlinks. And so Monday, which was tomorrow from Sunday, I sent out all my guys to every Home Depot and bought out all the Starlinks they had and then sent them over to East Tennessee, and we started getting people connected. So, we were able to get up to some of the more remote parts, and a lot of the local reps there, I got to give them credit, like Diana Harshbarger, Jeremy Faison, Jason Zachary. I talked to Tim Burchett, Marsha Blackburn as well. We coordinated with all these people to make sure the areas that needed it most got what they needed. But last night, we see the need is still so great. I talked with Elon and got with the Starlink team, and I bought another 20 Starlinks myself because what I want to make sure doesn't happen is in the future, I think what a lot of states are doing is they're just relying on loaners from Starlink in the future. I want to make sure Tennessee has a bunch of Starlinks that are just ready to go no matter whatever happens. And anytime something like this happens in the future, and, we all hate thinking about this, but it's going to happen in the future, we're going to be able to deploy all these Starlinks within a few hours, and just get our people out there and have them set up, and people won't have the multi-day long connection loss. So that's what we're doing on that end. But we're also, doing a drive at 424 Heritage Boulevard in Newport, Tennessee for supplies. That's an address that can still receive deliveries. And the internet has been amazing. I think well over 1 million people have been on that post so far and have been sending things. And that central hub, we're then making sure all those supplies get spread out among churches in East Tennessee that are in the affected areas. And that's everything from water, non-perishable food, cleaning supplies, tissues, kids food, baby food, diapers, all that stuff. So we're going to try to make sure everywhere gets help, but especially, I especially want to say there's some of these areas, in the mountains, the Appalachia region, that they're in a situation where for so long they feel like they're always last. We're trying to make sure they don't feel like that and that they're connected and they're able to reach their families.
All right, so a couple of things. Because I got people hitting me on the super text line. Can you explain what exactly a Starlink receiver is? Basically what this is so people can communicate via the internet, right?
Yeah, essentially, like I'm actually right now, I'm talking to you on a Wi-Fi call. So I don't have service where I'm at right now, so I'm connected to Wi-Fi. And essentially, Starlink is connecting through satellites in space. So no matter what happens on the ground, as long as the Starlink is able to have clear view of the sky, you will always have connection. So that's essentially what it does. So Elon is covering the service charge for, the entirety of this disaster period on these Starlinks, but we bought them so that long term we can just have them ready to store here in Tennessee, and whenever something happens, we can deploy them out.
So let me ask a couple of follow-up questions, Robbie. So do you know how lacking the federal government response has been? I've seen things, I've heard things. What are you seeing from where your vantage point is?
I know as of last night, I've officially purchased more Starlinks for Tennessee than the federal government has.
That's amazing.
here's something crazy, okay? So there was a grant that was supposed to happen, and this is all public. You can pull these grants yourself. As of this point in time, 11,000 Starlinks should have been deployed in Tennessee already as a byproduct of that grant. However, what happened was last minute, this is part of the rural broadband push, right? And what happened was last minute, the Biden-Kamala administration went to Starlink and Elon and said, actually, you know what, we don't think you can deliver internet access, which is going to be really funny when you hear the next part. Funny in a very dark way. So well over $40 billion was approved for this project for rural broadband that was released out. Okay, so we're talking, this was 2 years ago. Okay, this is the speed at which the federal government moves. Do you want to take a guess how many people have been connected by rural broadband of any sort under those grants that we're talking about almost $50 billion?
Actually, I know, Robbie, it's zero.
It's zero.
It is. And if I remember right, the commissioner came out and said that it is literally because of the incompetence of Kamala Harris and the federal government, and they've made it such a convoluted way of getting these things that it's 2 years later and nothing is done. And you got this done in a couple of days.
Oh, yeah. I mean, literally, it was actually from the time that I had the idea Sunday, within 24 hours, we had some places in East Tennessee connected. And then, you know, we had people kind of going into some of the harder areas. It was funny. Some of my guys were actually training Diana Harshbarger on how to do this. And she went up into the mountains and she was getting stuff set up herself even. So, you know, everybody's pitching in to make sure this happens. And that's sort of the reality of, you know, a lot of the most rural areas. I think the government overcomplicates things that are not that complicated sometimes.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah, believe it or not, it's true. And, you know, this sort of infuriated me is that, you know, somebody sent me a clip from the White House, and it was, you know, the press team, and they were bragging about sending 30 Starlinks to areas that were damaged by the storms. And that was like their big, you know, oh, here's what we got for you. They have no plan to actually get these connected, by the way. It's just like, we're going to get
There you go. Here's a piece of metal or whatever these things are.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be any sort of plan because we haven't seen one of theirs in operation. However, TEMA also bought 100 as well. So they're going to have 100 as well. And I think they're waiting on delivery still. So TEMA's operations center needed to get a Starlink, I think yesterday morning. And so we gave them one of ours. And so they could get connected and kind of get things going there. So I think long-term TEMA is going to have not only theirs, but also we already told TEMA that, you know, anytime you need one of ours, you just let us know and we'll get it to you guys.
I think it's worth noting, if I may, that clearly it's the Republicans / conservatives that are getting things done, and the Harris-Biden administration, they've been messing this up for a couple of years. And so I think part of this, I mean, it's just a matter of competency, is it not?
Yeah, you know, I have sort of a, you know, standard operating procedure of during disasters, you call a truce. You know, I even did it with some of these woke corporations that were offering me pallets of stuff to send to East Tennessee, which, you know, I think they're probably trying to get in my good graces so that we don't expose the woke stuff of their company. But that, you know, I appreciate the gesture, at least.
Yep.
And so, you know, there's a truce during these times. I won't, you know, I'm not going to go after them. And with the Democrats, you know, I will work with anybody to make good stuff happen during bad times, because when the chips are down, we're all Tennesseans, and, you know, you just want to make sure people are taken care of, nobody gets hurt, and that people are able to rebuild, right? And we've got plenty of time to argue about politics later. But if we're just being real, though, yeah, I mean, the federal government, it's shameful. Their response has been shameful. We haven't seen, my guys have not seen one federal asset on the ground aside from our federal representatives that are conservatives. Those are the only people, you know, we've seen on the ground. We haven't seen any other federal anything on the ground.
Robbie, I know you got 1,000 things going on. I got a couple more questions for you. Hold on, if you would. 7:16, time to check the roads on WTN. 717 Nashville's Morning News. As far as your weather today, partly cloudy, highs near 80. 61 now at WTN. Robbie Starbuck is joining us. Robbie, I got to ask, just on a personal note, what's it like to just be able to call up Elon Musk?
You know, he's just he's a regular guy, and so I'm very grateful for his support of the stuff that I've been doing, and you know, honestly, I just think he's doing such an incredible job for the world and our country right now. I'm really proud of him just on an overall with the way he's vocally stepped out, because I've said for years now the most dangerous thing about our country is the idea that we would celebrate and promote being a silent majority. And Elon has been a great example setter of the fact that you can't afford to be silent. You know, there's going to be some cost for speaking up. And that's actually a byproduct. The reason there is a cost is because we've been silent for too long as a country. And so, you know, when you're pushing a silent majority, you're allowing a very angry extremist group of people on the far left to control the future of your country and the conversation in it. So he recognizes the need to speak up, and I think he's setting a great example with everything he's doing to get us back on the path to greatness and aspiration. You know, as a country, I think we need to dream again. We need the space and, you know, time to do that, and we've got to kind of reach for the stars, and he's not afraid to do that. So it's great to see him doing what he's doing and also being so supportive of President Trump.
Absolutely. All right, real quick, people are asking, so do you need any financial contributions?
You know, I'm not taking any financial contributions myself. However, what I would say is if people want to make orders themselves, that way they know what they're getting, they know where it's going, they can address it to Representative Jeremy Faison, that's Faison, how do you spell the last name, and the address to send it to is 424 Heritage Boulevard, Newport, Tennessee, 37821. You can buy any supplies that you think are necessary. I mean, big or small, it can be one roll of toilet paper, it can be an entire pallet or multiple pallets, doesn't matter what it is. Send it to that address, and from there, that's sort of a central hub that's receiving all this stuff. It's a converted movie theater that's now a church. And, you know, we're getting everything there, get it labeled, get it organized, and then it'll go to a lot of the churches and areas that are harder to reach. You know, kind of one by one, we'll be taking a piecemeal in different groups to these areas.
All right, Robbie, great job, and appreciate you coming on. I know you have a lot going on today, and very much appreciate you joining us last minute here on WTN.
Absolutely appreciate you guys. Thank you.
All right, man. See you later. Robbie Starbuck, 720 Nashville's Morning News. I remember him talking about that, I remember the FCC chairman, Robbie and I were talking about this big broadband push that Kamala Harris was actually in charge of. You remember this? This was back about a week or two ago, I think, where the FCC chairman actually came out in front of Congress and spoke about one of the things that is really a massive failure, and that was this push for rural internet.
Vice President Harris agreed to lead the administration's signature $42 billion effort to extend internet service to millions of Americans. It's now been 1,039 days since that program was enacted. After all of that time, not one person has been connected to the internet. Not one home, not one business.
Yeah, as Robbie and I were talking about, the issue is that Harris and Biden set up the ground rules in such a complicated fashion that you have all of these broadband providers now saying, we just can't do this. It's like an albatross. Now, remember, they have the word equity in the title. The program, known officially as the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program, or BEAD, means that this is all muddled up with all of this equity nonsense. And, you know, the FCC commissioner, he just came out and basically said she's incompetent. Kamala Harris is incompetent.
Not even one shovel worth of dirt has been turned. And it gets worse. No infrastructure builds will even start until sometime next year at the earliest, and in many cases, not until 2026. This makes Vice President Harris's $42 billion initiative the slowest moving federal broadband deployment program in recent history. With Vice President Harris at the helm, Politico recently reported on the, quote, frustration in finger pointing that define the program's, quote, messy, delayed rollout.
There you go. 722. Elections have consequences. Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And again, we got a lot going on. Been talking a lot of the show here today about how I'm going on about 48 hours of non-sleep between becoming a grandpa, driving back from Kentucky up to here, the event last night, watching the debate and so forth. I cannot tell you. If you ask me how many cups of Space Cowboy coffee I've had over the last 48 hours, I probably couldn't tell you, but I can tell you that it's been a lot. This morning show in particular, powered by my favorite coffee, Space Cowboy Coffee. Now, it's hard to believe they've been around for a year, and things are going really well for year one with Space Cowboy Coffee. This is my coffee company. They're saying thank you to you for buying their brew. What they want to do is give you a chance to save big on Nashville's favorite coffee, spacecowboycoffee.com. Use promo code Dan. You're going to get 15% off as they say thank you for making year one such a success. You buy $50 or more, and you're going to get free shipping. Now, this is great coffee that I drink every single morning to get ready for the show. It's incredible, rich tasting. Right now, my favorite is their new espresso roast. Now, Space Cowboy Coffee is rapidly turning into Nashville's favorite. They're based right here in Music City. I've been trying all their favorite brews, and yes, they are amazing. Now, remember, save 15% and get free shipping when you spend over $50, spacecowboycoffee.com. That's spacecowboycoffee.com. Promo code Dan. 615-737-9986 is the super text line. It is open. 724, Joan Jones, what's coming up in the news?
Well, Israel is planning to respond to Iran's missile attack, and we'll tell you what one school board is doing to put an end to school threats. Those stories are coming up at 7:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
If you want to improve your shooting, you got to get away from lanes. This is Shoot 270, located inside the Glock store. I invite you to come down and check us out. I know you're going to love the shooting range, and you're going to love the retail store. See you there.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
729 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Okay, coming up next, James Carafano from the Heritage Foundation. All eyes on Israel. What are they going to do in retaliation for that massive missile attack that Iran hit Israel with yesterday? So this was not one of those, sort of symbolic attacks that Iran has done on Israel in the past. I mean, this hit almost the entire country of Israel, and this was a major attack. And one of the big questions I'm going to ask is, are we on the verge of World War III? What is Israel going to do? James Carafano will join us next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, good morning. It is now 7:30, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. We've got 64 degrees, a little bit on the cloudy side right now, but the sunshine will bust out later on, and it's going to warm up around here. Traffic and weather coming up in just a couple of minutes. The barrage of Iranian missiles into Israel is over. But the battle is not. Israel's military is engaging in what it calls a significant retaliation to the shocking attack.
Israel striking Hezbollah militants in Beirut, hours after the largest ever ballistic missile attack on Israel. Iran launching an air assault over major cities, firing more than 200 missiles. Explosions lighting up the night sky. Israeli defense systems intercepting many of those projectiles. U.S. forces also shooting down missiles. Multiple Israeli military bases were hit. Israel could target Iranian oil infrastructure, but a U.S. official tells ABC News Israel will not hit Iranian nuclear sites.
That's ABC's Perry Russum. The Rutherford County School Board has just given students something to think about before making a threat against their school. A resolution passed yesterday urging the district attorney to criminally prosecute students who make mass threats, and it could lead to jail time and a loss of their driver's licenses. School board member Tammy Sharp.
This is worse than anything that anybody can imagine with everyone dealing with it on a daily basis. We have to have some more teeth in these laws to put these children either in our virtual school or they need to be out.
Recently, Oakland High School received almost 20 threats, and there was an incident where one student stabbed another. Market Numbers report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com. An hour before the opening bell, and stock futures are pointing down. The Dow futures are minus 72. NASDAQ futures in the red by 8, and the S&P futures also down 8. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News.
Dan Mandis here, and man, is it great to be back. And I've got some great news from my friends at Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. Now, they've got some great offers and contests going on right now. If you tag Busy Bee with your scary furnace picture on any of your social media platforms, you could win a date night for two, including Preds tickets and dinner. You can also get 50% off furnace inspections and 20% off any furnace repair work at the time of service. And you can also get up to $300 off installation of an ultraviolet home treatment system. And you can get a free Beehive membership by carving a pumpkin of Buzz the Bee. Then post and tag Busy Bee on any social media platform. Look, all these special deals, they do show that Busy Bee is here to help you save money and maintain your home. For satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 615-775-7833, 615-775-7833. See details on these contests and special deals at their website. It's busybeehvac.com.
Well, looks like there's a stalled out car in Southside on I-40 westbound, the left lane block there at Elm Hill Pike overpass. Also, the South Loop, it's some road work this morning. The off-ramp right lane is blocked on I-40, the South Loop westbound, the off-ramp to 65, the exit 210B there. And that's going to be like that for probably until the middle of November. So take note of that because it's going to be a long-term construction project. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Dan Mandis here, 737 Nashville's Morning News. Got a question. If your roof was destroyed in a storm, how much of that replacement cost would your insurance company cover? Now, if you don't know, you really do need to ask because some of these insurance companies, they'll refuse to pay full replacement costs. And so what they're doing is they're deducting money if you have an older roof. Now, this means that the insurance company is depreciating how much they pay for your roof claim. Older roof. They're going to pay you less, and that could leave you on the hook for thousands of dollars, friends. Now, listen, don't let that happen to you. King & Associates Insurance, they will pay full replacement cost, unlike some of those other insurance companies. So whether you have to replace a 10-year-old roof or a 2-year-old roof, they do pay for it to be replaced, period. It is that kind of focus on customer service that makes King & Associates Insurance one of the absolute best insurance companies around. 615-329-8121. 615-329-8121. Get your royal review, tkinginsurance.com. .38 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to you, friends, along with Joan Jones doing the news, Johnny B producing. I'm Dan. James Carafano was supposed to be here. He's not. Has he actually blocked our calls at this point, Johnny, or does it it just goes into voicemail?
It just went immediately to voicemail, so either he's blocking us or he's on Tie Natty Winky time.
That's an interesting time.
It is. Most interesting time of the day. Anyway, so what I did want to speak to James Carafano about, of course, we're all monitoring what is going on in Israel. We covered extensively here on WTN what happened yesterday, Iran attacking Israel. You've got hundreds of ballistic missiles, and luckily, most of those ballistic missiles were shot down. There were a terrorist attack, I think at least one terror attack, where you had a bunch of people that were shot near a train station as well. And in the past, Iran has sort of, they've launched what many would call symbolic attacks on Israel, kind of tit for tat kind of a thing. Whereas like Israel Israel does something, takes out one of their commanders or generals or whatever it is. And so Iran will send sort of like an easily knocked down missile. And it's just like, okay, that's it. Everybody go back to their corners. This was not that. Yesterday was a major attack from Iran on Israel. And what they were trying to do was they were trying to overwhelm Israel's defense systems. Now, with the help of America and other allies, Jordan in the region as well, Israel, I think, they probably had some damage, but by and large, they went through unscathed as it relates to the bombs. But here's the thing. Now, all eyes are on Israel because you've got Benjamin Netanyahu and others saying that they are going to, let's just say it for what it is, they're going to bomb the living crap out of Iran. At least that's what it seems to me. Now, I heard Joan reporting earlier that they're going to stay away from the nuclear facilities. But what is Israel going to do? That's what everybody wants to know. Now, here's the thing, and we spoke about this last night at the pre-debate commentary, is that will J.D. Vance, and should he bring up the fact that all of those ballistic missiles that Iran was firing on Israel, of course, you know how they got that money, right? By ignored sanctions from the Biden administration. And so J.D. Vance last night, I mean, they were talking about this, and I love the fact, because my concern was that it's too weedy of a question. It's like, okay, so Biden comes in, basically ignores the sanctions that were placed on them by Donald Trump. Thereby, Iran is free to sell, billions and billions and billions of dollars of oil to China. Then they use that money to fund the terrorist organizations or bomb our allies. And, some people think that's too weedy of a question, but I think it's really important. And lo and behold, J.D. Vance brought it up.
We have to remember that as much as Governor Walz just accused Donald Trump of being an agent of chaos, Donald Trump actually delivered stability in the world, and he did it by establishing effective deterrence. People were afraid of stepping out of line. Iran, which launched this attack, has received over $100 billion in unfrozen assets thanks to the Kamala Harris administration. What do they use that money for? They use it to buy weapons that they're now launching against our allies, and God forbid, potentially launching against the United States as well.
Exactly. He is exactly right, and it's not too weedy. I mean, the way that I presented it, of course, too weedy. But for J.D. Vance, who's really good at speaking really concisely, he knocked it out of the park.
Donald Trump recognized that for people to fear the United States, you needed peace through strength. They needed to recognize that if they got out of line, the United States global leadership would put stability and peace back in the world.
J.D. Vance. And he's absolutely right. And so now the question is, what will Israel do? I mean, people are saying this could be, the beginning of World War III. I have no idea. I think that Israel is smart enough that they'll figure something out. They do need to defend themselves. They need to defend themselves against Hamas. They need to defend themselves against Hezbollah. And they need to do whatever they can to protect themselves. Now, one of the things that people have been noticing, and we've been speaking about this all morning long, is that J.D. Vance is being praised not only by, the usual suspects like yours truly, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance supporters, but also his critics are praising him as well. And one of the big parts of that conversation is how he came across regarding foreign policy. And we're going to get into that straight ahead. It's 7:45 on Nashville's Morning News. Time to check the roads. Partly cloudy today, a high near 80 degrees. Appreciate you listening to Nashville's Morning News. 63 degrees now. And what are critics of J.D. Vance saying about the running mate of Donald Trump this morning? One woman is named Lauren Lee, and she's on X. She's an influencer, calls herself an influencer. Supposedly, she's an independent and is somehow involved with The Daily Show. I don't necessarily care who she is, is what she says that is critical. And here's what she said regarding J.D. Vance and being an outspoken critic of J.D. Vance. She says, I'm no fan of J.D. Vance and have been an outspoken critic. However, his performance tonight was nothing short of artful. We saw the writer of Hillbilly Elegy, someone incredibly articulate and reflective, especially when it comes to foreign policy. She says the man was present, empathetic, and unable to be flustered by the obvious bias of the moderators. She says, I was particularly impressed with his pushback against the war machine. I will add the war machine that is the Democrat Party and some Republicans regarding Ukraine. She says, I was particularly impressed with his pushback against the war machine and calls for immediate diplomacy. He clearly solidified the Republican Party as the party of peace. Here's some more of that audio that she's referring to.
Diplomacy is not a dirty word, but I think that's something that Governor Walz just said is quite extraordinary. You yourself just said Iran is as close to a nuclear weapon today as they have ever been. And Governor Walz, you blame Donald Trump, who has been the vice president for the last 3.5 years. And the answer is your running mate, not mine. Donald Trump consistently made the world more secure. Now, we talk about what the sequence of events that led us to where we are right now, and you can't ignore October the 7th, which I appreciate Governor Walz bringing up. But when did Iran and Hamas and their proxies attack Israel? It was during the administration of Kamala Harris. So Governor Walz can criticize Donald Trump's tweets, but effective, smart diplomacy and peace through strength is how you bring stability back to a very broken world. Donald Trump has already done it once before. Ask yourself at home, when was the last time, I'm 40 years old, when was the last time that an American president didn't have a major conflict break out? The only answer is during the 4 years that Donald Trump was president.
Not wrong. So that Lauren Lee, again, she is an outspoken critic of J.D. Vance, wraps it up by saying, this, if done in earnest, marks a critical turning point, a long overdue party realignment, trying to turn the Republican Party into the party of peace. She says there's a reason why Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard have sided with Donald Trump. She says, I hope tonight reminded us of a decorum that we all need in politics again. Unity, strength, and kindness will win the day. They certainly won the debate last night, she says. And yes, Iran in the news yesterday and this morning. All eyes are on Israel to see what is going to happen next. I want to play some very quick audio because you've got CNN now, and I've got CNN on in the studio here. I'll quote Murphy's show. I'll watch it so you don't have to. But they're saying that there's no clear winner in the debate last night between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz. Are you kidding me? What are they smoking at CNN? I might want some. Totally kidding. But here's what happened last night on CNN as they really were declaring J.D. Vance the winner.
I think there was a clear lack of preparation and execution here on Walz's part.
I think actually it's the opposite. I think he had too much preparation.
Maybe, yeah.
He had so many lines that he was clearly trying to say that he didn't listen and said when J.D. Vance said one of the many things he really hit Kamala Harris on, not Tim Walz, but Kamala Harris, he didn't respond because he clearly had things in his mind. I think the lack of interviews that he has done with national media, with local media, it showed. He needed more reps.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, J.D. Vance is much more experienced at this, at public speaking, at defending himself, at pivoting.
By the way, it's kind of funny how Dana Bash was the one talking about how he hasn't done any interviews. I do find it kind of ironic that clearly the not-so-hard-hitting interview that Dana Bash herself did with Tim Walz and Kamala Harris did little to prepare him for last night's debate. Tim Walz clearly lost that debate. You know who knows that? Geraldo Rivera, who I guess is now on News Nation.
Vance won this debate. There is no doubt in my mind, however Governor Walz did in terms of sincerity, that Vance won this debate. Why did Vance win this debate? For the same reason that Cheney trounced Lieberman when they debated, or Kennedy trounced Nixon when they debated, because they were not the stereotypes. Waltz did come across as the substitute teacher being up against, dealing with the snotty, sharp kid in the class.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Tim Waltz was way overmatched. And, I've been talking about this off and on all day today. I think that he was befuddled. He was flustered. Tim Waltz was flustered. He was angry. He was furiously writing down notes. And, as I described it earlier with Tim Waltz, it's almost like he was taking notes, and it's like a guy in school, a kid in school who is told that there's going to be a test at the end of the lecture on that day. So suddenly he starts, scribbling down all these notes furiously, and he's getting all flustered. And you can tell the memes are out there today with all of the various faces of Tim Waltz. Here's more from Geraldo.
But Vance didn't just take that stereotype. Vance proved himself to be someone who could moderate his tone, who could be agreeable where necessary. He wasn't the wicked, aggressive stereotype that the mainstream media has made him out to be.
There you go, Geraldo Rivera. And everybody knows that, despite what CNN is reporting this morning as there's no clear winner, and I'm air quoting, clearly there was a winner, and that was J.D. Vance. There's a lot more to talk about. J.D. Host, E.J. Host, is going to join us coming up after the news.
Too many initials.
There is. That's why I can't call you J.J. because I'll screw that up. Joan?
Yes.
Okay. No, that's all I got.
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you what's coming up.
Yeah, I might as well. Joan Jones, what is coming up in the news at 7 o'clock?
We'll tell you how you can help out at 8 o'clock. Yeah.
I am just...
I think the man needs some coffee.
You know what?
I'll get you some, okay?
I need some of that Space Cowboy coffee at spacecowboycoffee.com.
We're going to tell you how you can help out in the recovery effort in East Tennessee. And also, the striking dock workers are demanding what? You'll be surprised. Those stories and more at 8 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Joan. Dan Mandis here, 7:52. And if you need anything for your home, go to my place, DT McCall's. Now, they've been doing business with Middle Tennesseans for 100 years, and I like to call that generational growth because they do it all at DT McCall's. Great value, outstanding merchandise, and terrific customer service. Now, I bought my oven there at DT McCall's a while ago. Next, a washer and dryer. I went to dtmccalls.com. I found what I wanted at the price I wanted to pay. They also deliver for free and haul away the old stuff. DT McCall's is a great American and a great Tennessee company that has indoor and outdoor furniture, appliances, kitchen appliances, and all the best brands. Tell them Dan Mandis told you to stop by one of their 5 locations across Middle Tennessee: Carthage, Cookeville, Lafayette, Lebanon, Franklin. Always online, dtmccalls.com.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price At checkout, you don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
$7:57, Nashville's morning news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You know, Johnny, sometimes you've just got to let the people enjoy the music.
Yeah, that's right. Let them kind of jam out to it.
Or you can just go to sleep while you're sitting in your chair and
Be
need to be woken up.
You know, I could do that too. You know, my next contract negotiation, I'm going to get a rocking chair in here.
We're going to be in trouble, Johnny.
Oh, yeah, we are. Yes, we are. I think we already are.
You guys have to wake me up kind of like Dr. Lori used to have to wake me up all the time when I worked with her. She tells that story all the time. She'd yell at me in the talk back, "Wake up, Dan, wake up." So, Johnny, you're going to have to start doing that. In
That's
fairness
awesome.
to me, I was going to school, working full time, and she would actually, believe it or not, she'd let me sleep sometimes during the show, and she'd just wake me up when it was time to wake up.
Well, how nice of her.
She was always great. I know, she was great. Anyway, got a lot more straight ahead. 7:58, Nashville's morning news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good morning. It is now 8 o'clock, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. We're at 63 overcast skies right now, but it'll get much warmer today. Stick around for the forecast coming up. The overall death toll from Hurricane Helene has now surpassed 160. As many people in East Tennessee and North Carolina are scrambling for basic supplies. In the Asheville, North Carolina area, all 3 water treatment plants have been compromised.
You don't realize how thirsty you are, you're at home and you flip your faucet on, just drink out of the sink or flush the toilet, brush your teeth, you have to spit in your sink, and you have to use your good water to rinse your sink out.
FEMA says it's already delivered 1 million liters of water to North Carolina. Meantime, Governor Lee's take on the damage and response here in Tennessee.
There is a great deal of hope when you see what is behind the effort, the coordinated effort in this community to begin to rebuild.
His comments after taking a tour yesterday. There are so far 6 confirmed Tennessee deaths. Donation centers are being established in most impacted counties. Bottled water, the most needed item. But officials ask that you check TEMA's website for each county's needs. Additionally, a fund with the East Tennessee Foundation has been established for monetary donations at easttennesseefoundation.org. Also, we've got it posted on our address and needs list from Robbie Starbuck. It's all over our social media platforms. An East Tennessee sheriff has announced the arrest of 8 men for allegedly looting in a flood-ravaged area over the weekend. Washington County Sheriff Keith Sexton says all the intruders are in custody at the Washington County Detention Center. Each are being held on $20,000 bond. The dock workers' strike enters its second day, and there are some reports that progress has been made in negotiations over wages. Controller Chris Hollins was on the picket line at the Port of Houston yesterday.
We've all experienced this inflation where prices have gone up and up and up. Wages here at the port have not gone up and up and up. They've remained stagnant. And so what ILA is fighting for is a fair wage.
Now, that fair wage he's referring to, the Longshoremen's Union wants a 77% hike in wages. They've already shot down an offer of a 50% pay raise. Students who make threats in Rutherford County could now lose their driver's licenses, and the school board voted unanimously in favor of criminally prosecuting school threats as well. Market Numbers Report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com. Dow futures down 66. The NASDAQ futures have turned positive. They're up 11. S&P futures are down 7. That's the latest news, traffic, and weather next. Joan Jones, WTN News. Got a problem this morning. A crash reported in Bordeaux, Clarksville Pike at Buena Vista Pike. Also, keep in mind that there's road work on that South Loop, the I-40 South Loop westbound off-ramp to I-65 southbound. There's the right lane blocked right now. They're working on that roadway furiously, and it's going to stay that way through November. So just keep it in mind. It's going to be a mess for a while. Traffic every 10 minutes, every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Information fueled, opinion driven. This is Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
we talk news.
8:06 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, along with Joan Jones, Johnny B, Dan Mandis here indeed. EJ Host is joining us. EJ, always great to have you on the radio program. Of course, folks probably know by now you, at one time in your life, spent many years as a Minnesota-based journalist and spent a lot of time covering one Tim Walz. And so I've been dying all morning, EJ, to know what your impression was of Tim Walz, because you and I have gone back and forth on text because you've been frustrated because the media has just been all in on this aw shucks kind of Tim Walz, I'm just a normal guy, when in reality the Tim Walz that you know is far different.
Very different. In fact, most everybody on any kind of talk radio in Minnesota or any kind of conservative outlets on X and other social media, anybody who lived under Walz or currently lives in Minnesota is saying, who is this guy? Because this kind of folksy dad in plaid cheerleader type with his hands waving and everything else is not the Tim Walz that we saw, certainly when he was running for governor both times, but really just his entire political career. So this is kind of a 180. It's like a completely different person, which is strange to watch, but it is interesting because I do think last night in the debate that crumbled a little bit. You could see him finally getting, J.D. Vance was able to get under his skin a little bit, and he was a little uncomfortable finally. And that kind of angry, like wide-eyed, like, wait, I want to say something came out. So it was nice to see that finally. I think some people were probably shocked to see that he's got these kind of angry emotions.
I want to play a piece of audio, and I think it's something that J.D. Vance did really well in attacking Tim Walz, and it has to do with freedom of speech.
But you guys attack us for not believing in democracy. The most sacred right under the United States democracy is the First Amendment. You yourself have said there's no First Amendment right to misinformation. Kamala Harris wants to use the power of government and big tech to silence people from speaking their minds. That is a threat to democracy that will long outlive this present political moment. I would like Democrats and Republicans to both reject censorship. Let's persuade one another. Let's argue about ideas, and then let's come together afterwards.
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's the test. That's the Supreme Court test.
Tim, fire in a crowded theater. You guys wanted to kick people off of Facebook for saying that toddlers shouldn't wear masks.
Senator, the governor does have the floor.
Fire in a crowded theater. That is criticizing the policies of the government, which is the right of every American.
I love how Walz says you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. EJ Host, he knows damn right well what J.D. Vance is talking about.
For sure. And actually you could kind of hear it under J.D. Vance speaking. What he said is not for misinformation and hate speech. Mm-hmm. It was quiet and you couldn't hear it from behind, but I hope that somebody will enhance that audio and really make that a big deal within the Trump campaign, because Walz he's the governor who tried to shut down speech during COVID. He pushed for a thing called the bias registry. There were floor debates about it in the Minnesota legislature. He really pushed for that. That J.D. Vance was being absolutely right about the censorship part of it.
Well, can you tell me a little bit about what the bias registry was?
Yeah, so it was basically trying to fight misinformation. It would be putting people on a list if you were sharing things that were opposed to the government narrative. It was very just rudimentally.
You mean EJ like all those people that turned out to be right?
Right. Everyone who ended up being right in the end would be on that list. Yeah.
So I guess part of this, because you've been watching Tim Walz for years, the Tim Walz that you saw on the debate stage, have you seen him in previous debates? I mean, you must have. He must have had, governor's debates and so forth, and for Congress and so forth. So has he ever been this bad, or is this pretty much par for the course from a debate standpoint?
Well, I think it's important to note that the Minnesota media has been so in the tank for him from day one that they really didn't give him anything difficult, right? Like every debate seems to be the same way. I mean, it's, hey, Republican person, everything you do stinks. Everything you say stinks. Please explain to us why you stink. And then they go to the Democrat and they say, hey, here's your opportunity to say something great that you could use in fundraising emails. Give us a soundbite, please. Right? Like that's a typical debate format. And it doesn't matter if it's national or otherwise. And Minnesota was no different. I mean, they really, truly love their access to the governor. They are just in the tank for it all. So you're not going to see previous debates where Tim Walz was really pushed. I mean, I think that the hardest question he got, he totally flubbed on, right? Was his, hey, were you in China or not during the Tiananmen massacre? And if they had asked more questions like that, like, hey, explain this stolen valor thing, explain this other lie that you told, right? Because there are plenty. Tell us about the $250 million fraud scandal where a bunch of, nonprofits that weren't really nonprofits sucked the money out of the American taxpayer and you let it happen under your watch. They don't ask him tough questions like that, right? So the debates are very, I don't know, just predictable.
The stage. They're basically the debates are about as real in Minnesota. They're about as real as professional wrestling.
Right. Exactly right. That's a great way to put it. It just isn't something that we would have seen. But off the cuff, though, when he does get asked questions by media or really more by citizen journalists, he comes out with these phrases that you just wouldn't even imagine. I mean, he does get very angry. That's
really? Because EJ, we didn't see that at all last night.
I've become friends with school shooters.
Didn't see that at all last night.
I'll give him that misspeak. I mean, I think he was trying to make a larger point, but boy, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, and here's the part of this dovetails right into what you're saying, which is after the debate, Tim Walz goes out for pizza and he refuses to clarify any of his comments.
Governor, you said you've become friends with school shooters during the debate. Can you clarify what you meant on that?
Can you clarify what you meant when you said you'd be friends with school shooters?
Why can't he just go and do what you just did, EJ, which is, okay, so I misspoke. That was an obvious misspeak. And
you know what's interesting about him misspeaking, though, Dan? And I think this is a big thing, right? Because he says, oh, I'm just a knucklehead who misspoke. I grew up in Nebraska, and that lets me be a knucklehead, right? That's his excuse for it. Why would we want that man who can't quite get it together, who misspeaks so often on really big, important topics? Why do we want him one inch away from the presidency? Which one of those men last night would you trust to take over if something happened to the president? I think that's pretty clear.
Absolutely. Got a little bit more with EJ Haas coming up next, 8:15. Time to check the roads on WTN. Partly cloudy today, highs near 80 degrees, 62 now at Super Talk 99.7. WTN, EJ Host is joining us on the Newsmaker Hotline. So he also, of course, EJ, you and I both know that Tim Walz, going over the VP debate, Tim Walz went into this wounded. Couple of things going on. Number one is clearly the wind is in the sails of J.D. Vance and Donald Trump. Number two, J.D. Vance is incredibly eloquent, and he's a great speaker. He's a great defender of MAGA values. And Tim Walz was clearly clearly overmatched, but he was also going in knowing that he was going to be asked about the lie regarding him being in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square uprising.
You said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this.
And EJ, he goes on for like 2.5 minutes. And he's just, you just said, I'm a knucklehead from Nebraska. What do I know, right? Well, here's the thing. As you just appropriately said, number one is if he can't handle, what dates did I go to Hong Kong, well, then how is he going to be able to take on Vladimir Putin or, Kim Jong-un?
That's a great point. That's a great point. Got to remember too, every time I come on the show and we talk about him, I'm trying to sound the alarm. He's an exaggerator. It's not even so much that he, flat lies, which of course he does, stolen valor and being in combat and all the rest. But he's an exaggerator. He does it dangerously because it's to advance his own political stance, his own, he wants the pats on the back, whether it be from the media or other politicians, or Alex Soros, Little Soros, as I'm calling him now. He exaggerates so much that he can't be taken seriously, even when he has something to say that maybe we ought to listen to. So that to me is a dangerous position to be in, particularly for a vice presidential candidate.
EJ Host is joining us, spent many years in Minnesota covering Tim Walz. I want to play a piece of audio for you, and I thought this was interesting. Maybe you know about this, maybe you don't, but there was a story a couple of days ago about the amount of immigrants that, or illegal aliens, whatever you want to say, that ended up being brought into Minnesota. This is what Tim Walz said.
We have more refugees per capita than any other state. That's not just morally a good thing. It's our economic and cultural future. This beautiful diversity we see out in Worthington when I'm there, you see 50 languages spoken in the school.
So just a little bit of research on that. Worthington is a train wreck as far as the schools go.
Yes, it is. Really across Minnesota, since he's become governor, all of the reading and math scores have tanked, and they just keep throwing more money at it. But it really is a problem. Imagine being a small town, and all of a sudden you have thousands of immigrants speaking multiple languages. What does that do to your school system? It's not just that they speak multiple languages. They don't speak English. So it's not like they're speaking English and another language, and yay, we have this diversity where maybe our American students can learn from them. It's not like that at all. It's overwhelming our systems. It is overwhelming our school systems, our healthcare systems. Literally every public offering is overwhelmed in these communities where they're bringing in, immigrants. And whether it's legal or illegal, really, at this point, doesn't matter. J.D. Vance made a good point last night. He was talking about Haitian immigrants, and he had to fact check. And I love that he did that, and he pushed back on the moderators who just really wanted to make a point and make the show about them. But what the part that was missing from all of that, is that these Haitian immigrants in Springfield, for example, are on TPS. That's a temporary protective status. What's temporary about it? When do they leave? How come we can't get anybody to ask, okay, when are they going to leave? Because if it's a short temporary thing, maybe they don't need to be in our schools, right? Maybe they don't need to be, given so much government assistance. If it's temporary, take care of them, send them back, done. It changes the dynamic of everything.
Well, and here's the other thing, and I did mention this earlier. You probably know about this, but I think you were gone by this point from Minnesota. But in Worthington, New York Times did a big old expose on Worthington specifically in February of 2023, where they talk about all of these kids that are working in these like meat packing processing plants or whatever. And they're being exposed to chemicals. They're working with blood and feces and urine, and they're breaking child labor laws.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's not uncommon, believe it or not, in many immigrant communities. I did a bit of research on that years ago and found very similar results. So I'm not surprised by that. it's actually quite sad. The culture just doesn't fit with American culture, where we do have labor laws. We do take our children as being sacred. We want to take care of them. We want to educate them and raise them well and make them into good, independent, great people, right? Like that's our goal as parents and as a community. And sometimes that doesn't align with some of the immigrants that are coming from other countries that have a very different view of what the purpose of having children is.
All right, so I've got a minute left. We got, 35 days before November 5th. What happens next? Next 35 days?
I think we get sound bites from last night for sure. I think Walz may have won the soundbite debate, believe it or not, because of the does Trump accept the election results question, right? They're gonna, even though it was perfectly reasonable, they're gonna blow it up and make it sound like it was something it wasn't. So I think they'll run on that. They'll have some good social media and some ads. In the end, though, I don't think it matters. It doesn't really move the needle. Trump has the momentum right now, and I think it's all about registrations. So Trump is winning on the new voter registration, and to me, that's a good sign.
EJ Haas, how can folks find you on Twitter?
Oh, please go to X and find me at EJ Under the Radar.
All right, EJ Under the Radar. EJ, always great to have you on, and we'll talk to you again soon. It is 8:21. And Joan Jones is coming up with the news. Joan, what is coming up?
Well, President Biden gets to work today. He's responding to the hurricane disaster in the South and the one crime that's on the rise in the Nashville area. That's coming up at 8:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
(8:24) Nashville's Morning News on WTN. Dan Mandis here. My Patriot Supply. Listen, you ever really sit down and think about what could happen, the disasters that could possibly take away our freedoms and impact our family and our country? Now, I do, and that is why I do keep several 4-week emergency food kits from My Patriot Supply in my home, and you should too. Now, it's got everything I need to provide for my family during a crisis. It's got over 2,000 calories a day. There is enough to go around. So I'm ready for whatever happens. But how about you? What would happen if there's an attack on our homeland? What if our grid gets taken out? That's where My Patriot Supply does come in. Go to preparewithmandis.com and you're going to get a great deal. Protect your family with emergency food from My Patriot Supply. Now is a great time. You get $50 off the same 4-week emergency food kit that I've got in my home. And they'll get it to you fast with free shipping. So remember, that's $50 off the same 4-week emergency food kit that I've got in my home. The food does last up to 25 years. It does taste great and will keep your family alive in times of trouble and despair. Remember, order today, preparewithmandis.com, and get $50 off a 4-week emergency food kit. Free shipping is also included, and it's going to order fast. Preparewithmandis.com.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionality, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com. Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. By the way, did you guys see Murphy Show last night on Fox Nation? If so, you're the only ones. I'm totally kidding.
Yeah, I can't even find Fox Nation.
I don't know how to get whatever. But you know what? Somebody sent me a clip, and he actually did really well.
Oh, good.
That does not surprise me.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to embarrass Murphy Show by playing a clip of him on Fox Nation.
Oh, that'll be cool.
Yeah, do that.
He totally owned it, and he looked great as well.
Even with his
long hair, wild
looking
look.
like a hippie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
He looked great. He sounded great. He looked nice and I did make fun of him because he actually kind of sort of looked like the guy that I hired. Like, you know, whatever, what, 2, 3, however long it's been now. But yeah, his beard was all shaved down and everything. His hair was actually combed.
Wow.
His clothes were ironed and all looking nice.
What?
Yeah.
I know. That doesn't ever happen.
He cleans up nicely.
He does when he wants a job or is going on TV.
Oh, maybe he wants a job by going on TV.
I'm going to tell you this. Murphy Show, I don't want to throw any stones, but I think Matt could absolutely not only hold his own on Fox News, but he could probably do better than some of the folks that are on there.
I agree.
I would agree, too.
Yeah.
He's a great talent.
Don't tell him that. He's going to ask for more money. Well, I don't care anymore. It's not my job. Anyway, 8:30.
Not your job.
That's exactly right. 8:30, Nashville's Morning News, WTN. You know, the real estate market, when it slows down, Mark Spain can really help you out with the guaranteed offer. Now, with the guaranteed offer, there's no showings, no open houses, and no stress. Absolutely hassle-free home selling. That is what you get with Mark Spain Real Estate. Now, you know, fall can be a busy time, and trying to sell your home can be overwhelming. With the guaranteed offer, you're going to be on the market, get an all-cash offer, and close within days. And the best part, no stress. So they've got over 12,500 five-star reviews. You can trust Mark Spain to sell your home fast and for the most money. Call them. Tell them Dan told you to reach out. 855-299-SOLD. 855-299-SOLD. Go to markspain.com to find out what your guaranteed offer would be on your home today. That's markspain.com and start packing.
Well, good morning to you. It's now 8:31, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. We're looking at 64 degrees overcast now, but sunshine and warmer temperatures coming up. The full forecast is just in a couple of moments. New this hour, Israel has announced that it's banning United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres from entering Israel. Israel Katz, the foreign minister of the Jewish state, wrote on X, quote, anyone who cannot unequivocally condemn Iran's heinous attack on Israel, as almost every country in the world has done, does not deserve to step foot on Israeli soil. President Biden is set to visit North and South Carolina today for a firsthand look at devastation from Hurricane Helene. Rescue crews, volunteers, and 6,300 National Guard troops are still searching for survivors.
Across 6 states are now blamed on the storm. Hundreds of people are unaccounted for. John Norwood was swept away by floodwater.
There was a 30-foot tall wall of water and rocks and tree debris just coming at us.
His fiancée is still missing.
She went one way and I went the other. The last thing I said to her was, I love you. And that was the last time I saw her.
North Carolina leaders say President Biden has given the green light to mobilize active duty U.S. military units to help with long-term recovery efforts.
That's ABC's Rihanna Nally. U.S. Senator Bill Hagerty toured hurricane-ravaged East Tennessee yesterday with U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn, Governor Lee, and State Department heads.
We're trying to move this water out as quickly as we can because there's another storm brewing in the Atlantic. If it takes the wrong turn and comes up here again, our ground's saturated, our water levels are high. We've got to be prepared to deal with that, and we are doing everything we can to be prepared for what may come next.
That is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News.
Thank you, Joan. Dan Mandis here, 8:33, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7. Listen, there's a lot of folks across the Tennessee area, North Carolina as well, of course, that are without power because of the hurricane and the flooding. Let me tell you something. Cove Generators can help you get a backup home standby generator, and now is the best time to do it. Why? Well, not only do they have great financing options, but they're also offering you that 7-year warranty. It's over $1,000 value, and they're giving it to you absolutely free. So now is a great time to buy that backup home standby generator from my friends at Cove Generators. Now, they're also going to answer whatever questions you have. My buddy generator Dave and the entire team at Cove Generators, they are there to answer all of your questions about how to keep the power on when power outages happen. So they can also service your Generac automatic standby generator as well, or frankly, any brand of generator that you own. So call them at 931-559-3311, 931-559-3311, covegenerators.com.
If you want to improve your shooting, you got to get away from lanes. This is Shoot 270, located inside the Glock store. I invite you to come down and check us out. I know you're going to love the shooting range, and you're going to love the retail store. See you there.
Well, checking out the roads for you this morning. There is an accident in Two Rivers. Crash blocking the left lane on Briley Parkway southbound at Opry Mills, exit 11. Also, an accident reported in Laverne on 24. This is in the westbound lanes at Waldron Road. And then you've got the road work that's happening on the I-40 South Loop, a westbound off-ramp to southbound I-65. That's under construction, just one lane available. It'll be that way all the way through November. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.838 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to you, friends. Time for the Gang of Four. Yeah! Uno, dos, tres, cuatro.
Nailed it.
It's the only thing I've nailed today. Everything else has been a train wreck. Actually, I think I've been pretty good today.
You've been good, Dan Pa.
I didn't get to say what I really wanted to say about Israel. I hope that they just take this opportunity to annihilate Iran. Like just to decapitate them. That's what I wanted to say, but I got stood up by James Carafano. So I kind of moved on from the whole Israel thing.
You got stood up?
I did.
Why would he stand you up?
Oh, because, I'm some country bumpkin from Nashville, according to those people out there in Washington, D.C.
Did you send him a mean message?
No, but I will. It's going to be in all caps.
I like it.
Bold.
Maybe it needs to be a little more diplomatic.
Couple angry emojis.
Maybe italicized. Yeah. Maybe it's those angry emojis.
Some underlines.
Have you seen?
What you should do? Say something really awful and then do the strike through and go, you know what? I'm not going to go there.
And then send doo-doo emojis.
Tim Waltz, with his faces last night, you could make many mad face emojis out of Tim Waltz. That guy, good Lord.
It was something to watch. It sure was. We thought Kamala Harris's faces were weird.
Did he do any of the because I listened to it on my way in, so I didn't get to watch it. But did he do any of the, like, his hand under his chin kind of thing that Kamala did?
No, nothing.
They reserved that for her.
It was a lot more of fear and shock and eye bulges.
Eye bulges.
I was expecting, like, smoke to come out of his ears like in the cartoons. You know what I mean?
I do.
So how did I left a little bit early, so how did the rest of the night go?
Man, the crowd was wild at Hop Springs. Always is. We got the best audience, and everybody stayed right till the end, and then we just rocked. We were talking the entire time. I had to watch the debate again when I got home because we're just yapping.
Hey, by the way, real quick, so I don't forget, Johnny, I need you to do the Beatles' birthday.
Well, I'm
Da-na-na-na-na-na-na.
there you go. Okay.
Just like that?
You got to sing it for us, JB.
Well, we can't play the actual song, Johnny,
No, we can't.
so we have to do it just,
See, I'm afraid to do that.
We're not
I
allowed
might
to
get
play that?
sued.
No.
The Beatles will sue us?
Yoko might.
Oh.
Well, yeah, because she doesn't have enough money. You can't play online. Anyway, I want to say happy birthday to a great listener, 12-year-old Brooklyn.
Yes,
She
happy birthday,
apparently
Brooklyn.
turns coolest name ever
Yeah.
is Brooklyn. So she's 12 today, and apparently either one of two things is happening in Brooklyn's house. Either her mom and dad are making her listen to WTN in an attempt to, create a good conservative, or she actually is already a good conservative and listening.
Yeah.
I don't know which it is.
Well, I think they might be making her because I was speaking to her parents last night, and they had asked me if Kennedy was going to come to the debate, and Kennedy had hockey last night.
Oh, okay.
Kennedy and Brooks did, so they didn't make it out. They said, "Well, Brooklyn's not coming if they're not coming."
It's a hard pass.
Yeah, hard pass.
Hard pass. Very
I
good.
got another birthday too. I missed it yesterday. My oldest son, John, Jr.
Happy birthday, JR.
Yesterday was his big birthday. So.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Very
I saw
cool.
your picture of him on Facebook.
Yeah.
Facebook, yeah.
Yeah, good looking fella.
Oh,
He is a good looking fellow.
Kid's
All
a
right.
stud.
Yeah, he is. He really is.
All right, so real quick, a couple of things. Remember the story I was telling you about the goo that ended up on my glasses?
Oh, jeez.
So
The one that we all decided we weren't going to tell.
you told me to tell it. You
Yeah.
told me to
You're
tell
right.
it. Well,
All
I
right,
did at
was the one-
5:35.
You told it at 5:35?
I did. I'm not going to tell it now.
Well, it was Murphy and Wilson that were saying, "Don't do it, Dan."
I think it's a great story.
Yeah, I told him he had me at goo.
I feel like you have to tell it again now.
Now you do.
Yeah, you do.
I was going to point to the
goo.
podcast.
Do the goo.
All right, so against my better judgment, but this is what happens in life. So we had a birthday yesterday. My grandson Jameson was born, and I had to cut the cord because the father was about to pass out. Now, I was in Target. And they gave Taylor, my daughter, the epidural. And so I had no idea. Nobody did. That epidural, I guess, I don't know how they work, but they kind of loosen things up.
It helps.
Yeah.
It's quick after that epidural.
Yes.
So I
it
get a
is.
text message that says, the baby's coming now. And I didn't think it was going to come for another like 4 or 5 hours. So I hightail it out of Target, get to the hospital, run inside the room, and I, of course, start filming from the head up, right? I'm not down there where all the... So anyway.
Hold on, let me ask my question.
Go ahead, Joan.
Did you get permission first, Dan?
It's funny you should ask that, Joan. No, I didn't.
Okay. That's all. That's all.
Very good. But listen, it's great. Like, I'm very proud of the detail that I was able to capture.
I've just pictured Dan flying into that room with scrubs on and a camera out.
Slipping on his little booties.
And occasionally almost dropping the phone and a little bit of juggling.
So,
I shanked that.
So no, I actually, it's a really good video. It really is. For some reason, my daughter doesn't want to see it quite yet. So Amy's like, "You did what?" I'm like, "I thought it's like a,
it's a moment.
It's a moment. It's a timepiece. It's a keepsake."
Yeah.
Anyway, so they wanted me to cut the umbilical cord because the dad was about ready to pass out because there's little blood.
Just a little.
I'm like,
Just
you want
a
me to?
smidge.
So I, of course, sure, step aside. I could do this. This will be my third one, right? So I cut the umbilical cord, and then about 20 minutes later, my daughter looks at me and she says, Dad, she's looking at me like all squinty-eyed and stuff. She says, I think you've got cord goo on your glasses.
Oh, jeez.
So ew.
And I'm like, what? So I take out, and so then all the nurses start laughing at me, right? And Taylor is like, I can't trust you to do anything. I said, listen, at least I cut the cord right.
And those nurses were telling that story around the dinner table last night.
They'll be telling it at Thanksgiving, too.
Yes, they will.
Better the glasses than the camera lens. At least you didn't ruin the shot.
That's exactly right.
I didn't shank that.
Well, and the funny thing is, she's like, how did that happen? And I don't know how it happened. It would have to fly backwards or something. I don't know.
The magic goop. It went back and to the left. I don't know what happened.
Anyway, a lot of fun, though. All right.
Congratulations, Dan. I mean,
yes.
that's awesome, dude. We've all been talking about you for the past 2 days. Very excited for you. Congratulations to you and your daughter.
And
Well,
you're
thank
going
you
to
very
make a
much.
great grandpa.
By the way, people kept asking me, did you weep? And I said yes. I did. It was a very touching moment. You know what else was also touching? Matt Murphy on Fox Nation. So here's some of
That is a hell of a segue.
Yeah,
right?
it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Funny enough, after talking with Murphy, Hegseth had some goop on his forehead. I don't know if anybody saw that.
Did he?
No. I'm just
No.
joking. I'm just
Pete
joking.
Hegseth is famous for that. He oils that hair down.
Yes, sir.
I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying.
Just observing.
Here's Murphy Show last night.
It was a debate between fantasy and reality, right? If you live in the fantasy world, then you live in a world where Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have not been president and vice president for the last 3.5 years. You live in a world where there's no border crisis. You live in a world where there's no foreign policy crisis. There's no economy crisis. So if you live in the J.D. Vance, Donald Trump world, you live in reality where all of these things are hitting home to the American people, the people of Tennessee. And I mean, it's just the difference between living in the fantasy land and living in reality. If you live in reality, you're voting Trump fans.
And then it was amazing. Do you know what happened after that? Is Pete Hegseth actually asked Murphy what kind of hair product Matt used.
He did. Are you serious? No.
No.
So gullible.
While you're looking at this video, and they both have the whole slick back look. And I'm not saying anything negative about Matt. That's a man with a great head of hair.
Yeah, he is.
If I were him, I wouldn't shave it. I wouldn't cut it.
No, you let the locks keep going.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, keep the hippie look, man.
He can he can be like the WTN version of like Fabio.
Oh, jeez.
But you can't put a lot of goo in it if it's long.
I don't know how that works, Joan.
Well, you don't have any hair, so.
At what point? At what point is too long for the goo?
I think see Johnny's length.
Yeah.
Like, just a normal haircut, you can get away with the goo. But if you've got so much goo that all of your hair will just look greasy, and if you only put it on the top, then it looks really odd to have some on the top and not on the bottom.
You have to have equal distribution of the goo.
Absolutely.
You know, we could have asked the Fox News folks what kind of goo they have in their hair, but we didn't get a chance to talk to them, except for Matt afterwards.
No, they were too busy doing the goo in the dressing room all night. Did anybody notice that? What are you guys doing? You're hiding in the dressing room. They hid in the dressing room the entire time.
I didn't.
Wait,
see
okay,
any.
so Pete Hegseth was there. Who else?
Pete Hegseth, Tommy Lauren, Clay Travis, and
what's the last one?
That other person. I don't know. But but anyway, yeah, they didn't come out. Now here's what I thought. Because wait. Let's see. Check your text messages. Maybe somebody is texting us right now telling us who that mysterious fourth person was.
Yeah, that other person.
Hegseth, Travis, Tommy Lauren. I don't know who the fourth was. Whatever.
Nobody knows.
And Clay Travis used to darken these hallways.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he used to be here at one time.
So here's what I think. I think that they didn't want to crash our party. Like, I think
that's really nice.
Maybe they were. No, I'm serious. Maybe they were sort of, they were cognizant of the fact that this was our party. They crashed it. And so they didn't want to be out there roaming and meeting, people because they didn't want to take away from whatever they think that we offer.
If I'm one of the guys that's like one of the head honchos at Fox Nation, You go out there, you shake hands, and you get some
Yeah,
subscribers.
I'm with you.
Yes.
I'm with you.
Don't play big star.
No, mingle with that crowd. Be real
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Well, they did let Murphy on.
Well, yeah.
He's a big star, though. So
Yeah, he
didn't-
is. He's a huge
They didn't.
star.
They didn't talk to me. I'm a little person.
Now, he's a little shy, I noticed. But
Murphy?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
it really had to pull a lot to get a lot out of him, I noticed.
Boy, he's like that, isn't he? Listen, we say that about Matt Murphy because we love him.
That's right. We do love
I was
Murphy.
talking earlier about how, you know what? He looked really good on Fox, and they ought to do more with him.
They should.
They should.
They might get viewers. More viewers. I meant to say that.
Okay.
I had a Walls moment.
I made the comment yesterday that Murphy
Did you
should have
misspeak?
had them on his show. They would have gotten
Yeah.
a little bit more.
Oh, yeah.
Boy, they sure had the security, didn't they? Woo!
Oh, my gosh. You walk in, there's all these men in black.
Oh, my wife about didn't get in. She was,
Really?
Oh, yeah, because she kept, everything kept going off every time she went through so they had to wander down.
I may or may not have had to walk back to the car.
He mentioned that yesterday. Moving right along. Do we have time to do this real quick? This is Jonathan Karl, and he's talking about the debate last night, and here's what he said.
But first, David, I got to say, I think that Walz did seem unsteady. And frankly, what I saw in Walz is somebody who has not faced questions on a national stage since he became the Democratic nominee.
Do you realize he's bagging on Dana Bash right there, right?
Yeah.
Because,
Oh, yes, he is.
yeah, he
Ooh.
interviewed with her, and she didn't ask any tough questions.
Simply out of practice. I mean, I don't know why they've done it, but they've kept him out of the limelight. They've kept him away from reporters. They haven't had him do any interviews, and he was clearly unsteady through much of that debate. And in
I love how he says, I don't know why they've done it, and you just watched that debate. That is why they've done it. That's why they've done it, John. That's why.
contrast, J.D. Vance was very smooth. He took the arguments not to Walz. He was very respectful of Walz, took it to Kamala Harris.
There you go.
Yeah.
Jonathan Karl.
He's right, though.
I don't understand how people are saying that this was a tied debate.
Who's saying that?
Well, CNN.
The CNN
Consider
clips,
the source.
The CNN
It's
clips
CNN.
the CNN clips I saw were actually very complimentary of Vance.
Yeah, but you know what I've noticed? There's the afterglow of the debate, and everybody's honest, and then by morning, they've changed the narrative.
They get their marching orders.
They get their marching orders. That's exactly
That's
right.
because the email comes overnight.
That's exactly right, Joan.
It is.
All right, very good.
That's how it happens.
What do you got coming up, Chris?
Well, we are going to talk about the debate. I also want to bring up, I don't know if you've seen the conspiracy theories about the hurricane online, but we're going to dive into those.
Oh, my.
I love a good theory. Love me a good theory, so we'll talk about that.
Can you whittle that down to like 30 seconds?
Lithium mines.
Okay. 8:53. Nashville's morning news
Wow.
on.
Have you seen that on the internet?
No.
Everybody's talking about it.
Except for you, Dan.
All right,
Dan's had a couple-
Johnny, you guys see that? I was
never
busy
seen that.
wiping goo off my glasses.
That's
I've been
right.
busy.
I've had dozens of people send me the lithium mines theory.
Dozens. Have you?
Dozens.
Okay, good.
Are there
Dozens.
Are there lithium mines in southern United States?
We're going to talk about it after 9, Joan.
Okay.
It's a tease right there.
What you call a tease? Yeah.
Sounds like Joan's going to be quizzing you. You better have your answers
I don't
together,
know.
man.
I think it's an interesting theory.
All right, I can't wait to hear it. 8:53, Nashville's morning news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Dan Mandis here for my friends at Loan Pronto, and great news for homeowners. Mortgage rates, they have been going down. My friends at Loan Pronto have rates that begin with a 4. Now, this is the best rate in years. So if your current rate right now is over 6%, you can dump it and lower your house payment big time. Loan Pronto is locked in, folks, recently at 4.99% APR. So whether you got your loan last week, last month, or last year, it is time to call my friends at Loan Pronto. Even if you're in the process with another lender, stop now and call Loan Pronto and ask about their zero-cost rate reduction home loan. You can lock in a lower rate with no closing costs in a matter of days with almost no paperwork and usually no appraisal. And if you act right now, you can even skip your next 2 house payments. So call right now, Loan Pronto. That phone number is 615-499-5780. 615-499-5780. LoanPronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781 on approved credit.
If you want to improve your shooting, you got to get away from lanes. This is Shoot 270, located inside the Glock store. I invite you to come down and check us out. I know you're going to love the shooting range, and you're going to love the retail store. See you there.